Let me take you back to the 1870s, those quiet years when oil lamps lit our evenings soft and steady. Steamships puffed along the rivers carrying folks and freight, and the telephone started whispering its first words across wires. We'll sit a spell with the simple ways of home and work, the music from fiddles and organs, the everyday comings and goings that made life feel full and sure. We'd gather in the kitchen as the sun dipped low, the room filling with that soft evening hush that comes after a long day on the farm. Oil lamps were our steady friends back in the 1870s, sitting right there on the table with their glass chimneys catching the flicker just so. I'd watch my pa trim the wick careful with his pocket knife, snipping it even so it burned clean without smoking up the place. Then he'd pour in fresh kerosene from the big blue can we kept out in the shed, the smell sharp but familiar like earth after rain. Those lamps weren't fancy, just plain brass or tin bases with a wick tube rising up, and a reservoir that held enough fuel for half the night. Kerosene came cheap after the oil wells started pumping in Pennsylvania, not like the old whale oil that cost an arm and a leg. We'd light it with a match struck quick on the hearth, and the flame would bloom steady, throwing a warm yellow glow over the oilcloth on the table and the faces we loved best. Pa would set the lamp dead center so the lights spread even, good for whatever task lay ahead. Mother pulled her sewing basket close, thread and needle flashing as she mended the knees of my brother's trousers, worn thin from crawling through corn shocks. The light made her work easy, no shadows to fuss with, and she'd hum a little tune from church while her fingers flew. I'd sit with my slate and pencil, copying sums from the McGuffey reader under that gentle beam, the numbers coming clear without straining my eyes. Sometimes Pa read the paper aloud, his voice low and sure, telling of trains running farther west or President Hayes signing laws in Washington. The lamp held back the dark like a faithful dog, making our little world feel safe and full. But it wasn't just light we got from those lamps. It was the feel of evenings stretching long and peaceful. After supper of cornbread and beans simmered slow, we'd clear the table and draw close around it. The flame danced a bit when a draft slipped under the door, but the glass chimney kept it steady, warm enough to chase the chill from October nights. Family talk filled the air then, easy words about the day's work or tomorrow's chores. Ma shared how her own mother back in Ohio kept a lamp burning late to rock the babies, passing down the habit like a quilt pattern. We'd listen, the light painting soft shadows on the walls hung with calendars and a tintype of grandma, making the past feel close as the present. Churning butter came next some nights, the dasher thumping steady in the tall crock under the lamp's watch. I'd take a turn, arms aching sweet as cream turned to golden pats we shaped with wooden paddles. Spread thick on yesterday's bread, it tasted of our own hands and the cows out in the pasture, a simple reward that the lamp helped us earn. Mending clothes was Pa's quiet time too, his big hands patching overalls with squares from old feed sacks, needle dipping in and out slow. The light showed every thread true, no missed stitches in the corners. It taught me young how to make things last, stretching dollars thin as the fabric we saved. Reading aloud was the best part, when Pa opened the Bible or a dime novel he'd traded for at the store. His voice rolled warm over stories of David and Goliath or steamboats racing on the Mississippi, the lamp's glow turning pages yellow and inviting. We'd picture it all, my sister's eyes wide, the flames steady as his words, planting notions of far places right there in our kitchen. Winters brought wood to the hearth alongside the lamp, logs crackling companionable as we gathered closer. The fire warmed our fronts while the lamp lit our laps. Mother knitting socks from wool we'd carded ourselves. Smoke from the chimney mixed faint with kerosene, a home scent that wrapped us tight against the wind howling outside. One lamp often did for the whole family, moved from table to sideboard as needed, its handle warm from use. We'd snuff it careful at bedtime with a wet finger or snuffer, saving fuel for morning, the room fading slow to black. Sleep came easy then, dreams lit by the day's glow. Those oil lamps bound us night after night through the 1870s, simple tools that turned hours of dark into time well spent. No flicker of worry in their steady burn, just honest light for honest living, holding memories that flicker still when I close my eyes. They were more than fire. They were the heart of home evenings, steady as the love that filled them. Come evening in the 1870s, after the supper dishes were washed and put away in the cupboard, we'd all draw close to the hearth in the main room, where the fireplace stood solid against the log wall, its stones still warm from the day's cooking. Father banked the fire low with fresh split oak logs we'd hauled in from the woodpile earlier, the flames crackling soft and steady as they settled into a bed of glowing embers that threw heat just right across our faces and laps. Mother fetched the rocker from the corner, its wood worn smooth from years of use, and settled with her knitting needles clicking steady over a pair of wool socks for winter, the yarn she'd spun herself from the sheep's fleece that spring. The oil lamp from the kitchen table came along too, set on the mantel to add its yellow glow to the firelight, making shadows dance gentle on the walls papered with newsprint we'd pasted up ourselves. Father eased into his chair by the fire, boots off and feet toward the warmth, and started in with one of his tales from boyhood days back east, about chasing wild turkeys through the woods or the time a neighbor's prize bull broke through the fence line. His voice came low and even, pausing now and then to poke the fire with the iron, sparks rising up the chimney like stars on a clear night, and we'd sit quiet, letting the story pull us in close as kin. Mother's needles never stopped much, looping yarn into heels and toes while she added bits here and there, like how her pa had taught her the same stitches to keep toes warm against January snows. My sisters mended hems on their calico dresses, fingers nimble under the light, talking soft about the patterns they'd seen in the latest Godey's Ladies book that Father brought home from town. The room filled with that good smell of burning applewood mixed with wool and a hint of the bean soup still lingering from supper, everything feeling right and settled after the rush of daylight hours. Sometimes Brother took out his mouth harp, drawing slow notes that wove through Father's words like a quiet river, playing old tunes he'd picked up at barn raisings down the road. We'd hum along if it was something familiar, like Shenandoah, or a hymn from church, the fire popping in time almost. No rush to it all, just hours stretching easy till the clock on the shelf chimed 10, reminding us of dawn chores waiting outside. Those hearth gatherings bound us tighter than any rope, sharing the day's small triumphs like a good egg yield from the hens or the first green shoots in the kitchen garden. Father spoke plain of hard times too, like the year the locusts took the wheat, but always with a turn toward how neighbors helped each other through, lending seed or a strong back. It taught us young that family wasn't just blood, but the way we leaned on one another under that roof, fire warming our fronts while memories warmed the rest. Mother might rise to stir the embers or add a log if the chill crept in from the drafty windows plugged with rags, her apron pocket full of yarn scraps. We'd watch the flames shift colors from yellow to deep orange, listening to the wind sigh past the eaves, feeling safe in our corner of the world. Laughter came easy too, when Father mimicked the preacher's long sermons or Brother tried a fancy lick on the harp that went sour, drawing groans and grins all around. One night stands out clear, when snow fell thick outside, and we huddled extra close, Father telling of the steamships he'd seen on the river as a young man, paddles churning foam white as milk. Mother's knitting grew a whole sock by night's end, and we turned in with hearts full, the hearth's glow lingering in our sleep. That's how evenings passed in our home, simple as the fire's warmth but deep as the roots holding the place together. No grand plans or fret over tomorrow marked those times, just being there with the ones who mattered most, voices blending with the fire's song. It built a quiet strength in us, one that carried through years of planting and reaping ahead. Those hearth hours were the true harvest of our days, gathered close and cherished still. Evenings held a steady rhythm in our 1870s home, and after the fire settled low and Father's tales wound down, Mother often turned to the churn standing tall in the corner by the kitchen door, its wooden staves worn smooth from seasons of use, ready for turning cream into the butter that graced our table through the week. We'd save the morning's milk in shallow pans set out in the spring house, where the water ran cool over stones, letting it sit till the cream rose thick to the top, skimmed off careful with a shallow spoon into a stoneware crock covered with cheesecloth to keep the flies away. Come evening under the oil lamp's glow, Mother poured that golden cream into the churn, sealed the lid tight, and set to work with the dasher, that long wooden handle plunging up and down slow at first, the slosh of liquid turning rhythmic as her arms found their pace. I took my turn next, still young but strong enough to grip the handle firm. Feeling the cream slap against the sides till it thickened, the sound shifting from splash to a heavy thump that told us butter was coming. Pa watched from his chair, offering a nod when the rhythm held true, while sisters fetched salt from the crock on the shelf to work in later, their small hands measuring just right from long practice. The lamp lit every drop of sweat on Mother's brow and the flecks of cream on the lid, making the task feel shared and sure, no rush in the winter dark outside. Hours it took sometimes on a big batch, arms tiring sweet, but the promise of fresh butter keeping us at it. Spread thick on cornbread still warm from the oven or melted over potatoes boiled simple for supper. When the dasher grew heavy and the buttermilk sloshed pale below, we'd lift it out, pour the contents into a wooden bowl, and gather round to work the butter by hand, folding in salt till it held shape under the paddle. The grains fine, and even so it lasted weeks in the crock packed down tight. That taste hit different, rich from our own cows grazed on the hillside clover, not like the store stuff that came pale and dear on market days. Mother taught us the feel of it all, how to wash the buttermilk out with cold spring water poured over and over till the rinse ran clear, squeezing the mass firm to draw every drop. Her voice soft over the splash, explaining how her ma back in Vermont did the same through lean years after the war. Pa added stories of trading butter pounds for coffee or calico at the general store, wills of it wrapped in cloth carried careful on the wagon seat. The work bound us close, hands sticky and content, the kitchen air thick with that fresh dairy tang mixed with wood smoke from the hearth. Sisters shaped pats with wooden molds carved from applewood, pressing patterns of wheat sheaves or stars into the top for Sundays, stacking them neat on a plate under the lamp to firm up overnight. We'd sample a bit on the end of a knife, cool and salty on the tongue, a reward earned right there in our evening circle. No waste in those homes. The buttermilk went to biscuits next morning or fed to the hogs rooting in their pen, every bit stretched to feed the family through. One fall evening stands clear. After harvest left us with extra milk from cows heavy with feed, the churn yielding near 2 pounds that night, enough to fill the crock half full and trade for lamp oil come Saturday. Laughter rose when my little brother tried the dasher and spilled cream on the floor, mopped quick with toweling while Pa chuckled low. Those moments turned labor light, the butter a golden heart of our table, proof of hands joined in plain purpose. Through rain or frost, that evening churn held steady, part of the quiet pulse that kept our farm going, teaching patience in every plunge of the dasher. It mattered deep, that butter, not just for flavor, but for the way it pulled us together under one roof. Flavors of home lingering long after the lid clicked shut. Simple work, honest yield, memories churned up still when I think back on those lamplit nights. After the churn sat quiet with its fresh butter packed away and the hearth fire banked low for the night, we'd turn to the mending basket Mother kept under the side table, pulling out shirts and dresses worn thin from the day's fields and chores in our 1870s home, the oil lamps' steady glow calling us to make them last through another season of sun and rain. Pa fetched his awl and heavy thread from the nail by the door, settling into his chair with a pair of overalls split at the knee from crawling under the wagon to tighten bolts, while Mother threaded her finest needle with cotton twist for the children's calico frocks frayed at the hems from chasing geese in the yard. We'd spread the pieces flat on our laps or the table edge, matching tiers careful to scraps saved from old flour sacks, the lamp showing every pulled thread and worn spot clear as day. My job was the small rips mostly, like elbows on my shirt from pitching hay or snags on Sister's apron from berry picking down by the creek, learning to whip-stitch neat so the patch lay flat and strong under Mother's watchful eye. The needle pricked through cloth soft from many washings, pulling thread tight in even rows that blended close to the weave. No bunching or loose insta-catch on fences later. Pa's stitches were bolder, thick sailor's knots for leatherwork belts or boot soles coming adrift, his calloused fingers steady as he punched the awl through, grunting approval when the mend held his tug test firm. That lamplight made all the difference, spilling warm over the colored threads, blue for skies on feed bags, red stripes from tobacco pouches, turning mending into a quiet art we all shared, voices low with talk of who wore what when. Mother recalled her wedding dress mended the same way through 5 babies, patches layered like pages in a book, each one marking a year of spills and tumbles. We'd laugh soft when brother held up his mended trousers backward, patches blooming on the wrong side, turning the basket into a circle of easy fixes and fond memories. Salt bags gave white squares for underarms yellowed with sweat, while faded gingham from curtains made cuffs strong against plow handles rubbing raw. No new cloth bought unless the tear went clear through. We turned collars and cuffs first, folding worn edges under, and stitching down fresh faces to shirts that started stiff but softened with wear. The smell of kerosene mixed with warmed wool and lye soap from the day's wash, filling the kitchen peaceful as we worked, clock ticking slow on the mantel. Sisters practiced fancy work too, hemming edges with tiny invisible stitches for handkerchiefs or edging a collar with lace unraveled from Grandma's old petticoat, dreaming aloud of town dresses while their fingers flew true. Pa taught us to reinforce seams on jackets for winter wood chopping, double rows of stitching against splitting cold, his stories weaving through of the war days when soldiers patched uniforms with bayonet bay thread under campfire glow. Every mend carried purpose, stretching our few store trips into months of wear, teaching hands young to value the labor already poured into spinning and weaving. One stormy night, thunder rolling distant, we mended a whole quilt top pieced from feed sacks that spring, needles flashing under the lamp as wind rattled shutters, the patches forming stars and log cabins that warmed us come December. Finished pieces went folded neat into drawers scented with lavender from the yard, ready for dawn dressing. Proof our evenings built more than cloth, built thrift and care into the bones of family life. Brother even mended his cap, brim floppy from rain, proud as any tailor when Pa clapped his shoulder. Through lean falls or plentiful harvests, those mending hours held steady, turning ragged into ready, waste into worth under the lamp's kind eye. It mattered simple, keeping us clothed against weather's whim, but deeper it wove us together, needle by needle, into a home that wore well the years. Those nights linger plain in memory, stitches strong as the bonds they helped mend. With the mending basket pushed back and the last patches secured tight, Father would reach for the shelf above the mantel where our few precious books stood in a row, their leather spines cracked soft from handling. Pulling down the big family Bible or a worn copy of Dickens that traveled with us from Ohio, settling back in his chair as the oil lamp cast its circle of light just right over the open pages in our 1870s evenings. He'd clear his throat gentle, voice starting low and steady like the tick of the clock, reading those words that pulled us into worlds beyond our farmstead walls, the flame flickering soft when he turned a page, making shadows play across Mother's face as she rocked slow with her mending idol in her lap. We'd lean in close, the fire's warmth at our backs and the lamp's glow ahead, listening to tales of poor Joe in the London fog or David facing the giant with sling and stone, Father's words painting pictures clear as the illustrations etched faint in the book. No need for theater or shows from town. His reading brought it home, pausing now and then to explain a hard word like benevolent or mimic a character's gruff voice, drawing chuckles when Tiny Tim spoke brave. Sisters sat wide-eyed on the floor by his feet, hands folded neat, while brother whittled a stick slow, shavings curling white onto the hearth rug. Mother added her part sometimes, reciting verses from psalms she'd learned as a girl, her voice soft and sure blending with Father's prose, turning reading into a family song of sorts that filled the room warmer than any blaze. The Bible came most nights, chapters on the prodigal son or Noah's Ark making us picture floods and feasts right there in our kitchen, lessons sinking deep without preaching, just plain words that stuck through the years. Dickens arrived rarer, traded at the store for a sack of flour, its stories of workhouses and kind strangers stirring talk after of our own blessings like the full barn or neighborly loans. Lamp trimmed fresh kept the light steady through long chapters. No sputter to break the spell, kerosene's faint scent mixing with pipe smoke when Pa puffed slow between pages, his free hand resting on the chair arm scarred from years of farm wear. We'd ask questions soft. What became of Oliver next? And he'd read on, building suspense till eyes grew heavy, the clock chiming 9 like a signal to wind down. Those sessions planted seeds in us, love for stories that bloomed later when we spelled out primers by day, dreaming of authors ourselves some evenings. One winter night lingers sharp, snow piling silent outside as Father opened to a Christmas carol, his voice warming the chill with Scrooge's grumble turning to joy, Mother wiping a quiet tear while we hung on every ghost and feast. We talked after of giving like Fezziwig, deciding on a ham for the widow down the road, the book closing with nods all around. No grand library we had, just those volumes passed hand to hand, but they fed our minds rich as butter fed our bread. Sisters practiced reading lines themselves sometimes, stumbling brave over syllables till confidence grew, Father nodding proud when they caught the rhythm right. Brother listened closest to adventure parts, tales of ships and far lands sparking his questions on steamers he'd seen on the river. It all wove together under that lamp, reading binding us like thread and cloth, turning plain nights into treasures stored deep. Through spring rains or summer dusks, those reading hours held true. Father's voice the steady thread pulling tales from print to heart, teaching more than letters, taught wonder and grit in equal measure. It mattered simple, filling dark with light beyond flame, memories glowing still like embers when pages close in my mind. Those evenings read us into one another, book by open book. Dawn broke cool over the fields in our 1870s farmstead, pulling me from bed while stars still hung faint, to hitch up the team of horses in the barn where their breath steamed white against the lantern's glow, harness leather creaking as I buckled straps over their broad backs, ready to turn the earth for spring planting with the plow Pa sharpened the night before. We'd lead them out to the furrow line, reins firm in one hand and plow handles steady in the other, the share biting deep into dark soil turned rich from winter's rest, horses leaning into collars with steady pull that set the pace slow and sure across the quarter section we'd break that day. Pa walked alongside calling G for right and Haw for left, his voice calm over the rumble of wheels and chunk of sod giving way, each pass laying straight ridges that promised corn or wheat come fall if rain held kind. Those Percherons or Belgians stood tall at 16 hands, manes braided back from sweat, hooves churning mud that clung heavy to our boots as we swung the plow round at Row's End, wiping brows with sleeve ends before starting back the other way. The air smelled of damp earth and horse, sharp with promise after months of idleness, my arms aching from guiding the beam true against roots that tugged hard. But the line stayed even under Pa's watchful eye teaching me to read the land's tilt. We'd cover ground steady, 2 horses for light soil or 4 abreast when sod lay thick unbroken, the team knowing their work better than words sometimes, falling into rhythm that matched our steps mile after mile. Breaks came mid-morning with water from the jug slung over the fence post, oats for the horses from nose bags while we chewed cornbread wrapped in cloth from Mother's kitchen, talking plain of how deep to set the share or when to harrow next. No machines then to hurry us, just muscle, and we'll turning wilderness to fields that fed us through lean winters, the plow's moldboard scouring clean, so seeds dropped true in pockets we'd poke later. Pa shared tales of his first team bought cheap after the war, breaking them gentle with halter, leads till they trusted the load, lessons passed to me in every walk on whispered soft. Sun climbed high by noon, shirts sticking damp as we pushed through the heat, horses flicking tails at flies that buzzed thick, but shade from the big oak at field edge gave relief with apples bitten sharp if they hung low. Afternoon saw us finish the field or shift to disking clods broken under the team, sweat tracing paths down faces set determined, the straight rows marking progress like stitches in cloth. Mother brought lemonade rare from Town Sugar, poured cool into tin cups that steamed in the shade, her nod saying the work looked good for the year ahead. One spring sticks clear when rain held off 2 weeks and soil powdered fine under the plow, turning acres smooth as a table by dusk, horses spent but proud with heads high on the way to water trough. We'd unhitch slow, rubbing them down with straw wisps in the barn loft light, feeling the pull in shoulders that meant honest day's end. That plowing set harvest's hope, corn shooting knee-high by July from those furrows, ears heavy gold in October shocks we'd gather laughing tired. Neighbors joined sometimes for big bottomland, teams side by side trading shouts over the width, dinners shared after with pie and talk of markets in town. It built more than fields. Those days built grit in boys turning men, trust in beasts that carried the load faithful. Through drought or flood threat, plowing held the farm's heart steady, Earth yielding to hands joined with horse. Promise turned real one furrow at a time. Memories furrowed deep still, straight as those lines we walked. Fall came heavy on our 1870s farm with corn tassels turning brown and ears swelling full in the rows we'd plowed careful come spring, pulling us out before full light to start the harvest. Husking knives tucked in belts and burlap sacks slung over shoulders as we walked the fields where stalks stood tall as a man, blades sharp from the scythe Pa honed on the whetstone the night before. I'd grab a stalk base steady, snap it free with a twist that cracked clean through the stem, then draw the knife quick down the husk to bare the golden ears shining fat under morning dew, tossing them into the sled piled high behind the horses that waited patient at field's end. Pa led the way calling rhythm over the rustle. One more row, boys, as sweat beaded early, the air thick with dry leaf smell, and earth turned up soft from roots giving way. Husks peeled back easy after frost bit first, revealing kernels milky then firming to dent stage perfect for grinding come winter. My hands chapped raw from tugging tough outer leaves that scratched like paper, but softened quick in the pile. We shocked into teepees of 10 stalks each, bound tight with their own vines to cure against October rains. Brothers followed, stripping ears straight into baskets woven tight from willow switches mother cut by the creek, the sled creaking under load as we dragged it back to the crib, horses blowing steam on crisp days when breath hung white. No rush in it though long the days stretched from dawn cant to dusk dark, knives flashing steady in time with our steps, corn silk tangling golden hair and beards alike. Midday brought shade under the shocks we'd built tall, cornbread and cheese from the lunch pail mother packed with cider sharp from the press, talking plain of yield per acre or how the dry spell browned some tips, but left plenty for meal and feed. We'd lean on pitchforks wiping blades clean on trouser legs stained green from sap, eyes scanning rows left standing like soldiers for the fodder pull later when snow flew. Pa showed us the feel of a prime ear, thumb testing kernels plump row on row, culling worm-eaten ones for the hogs that rooted eager at slop time. Afternoons ground on heavier, backs bending lower as sun baked the stubble short behind us, knives nicking fingers now and then wrapped quick in rag strips dipped in lard to staunch the blood before pressing on. Shocks rose in clusters across the 40 like Indian lodges, topped with a cap stock to shed water, standing proud till shelling day when we'd cradle ears in the husking peg strapped to knuckles, kernels flying into bushel tubs till arms screamed mercy. Mother joined sometimes for light rows near house, her basket filling neat while she sang hymns low, turning labor to lift under wide sky turning orange at close. One harvest blurs golden when early frosts sweetened the corn extra, yielding bushels beyond count that filled the crib to rafters, neighbors hauling shocks on their wagon for trade in beans or help come threshing. Laughter broke through when brother found a red ear, old custom calling for forfeit of hat, or a story told body as Pa pretended shock, the pile growing merry round the crib door. We'd finished dark with lanterns hung on fence posts, last ears tumbling home to supper of fresh-boiled corn slathered butter we churned ourselves, steam rising sweet as thanks for ground given good. Rain threatened some years holding us barn-bound, pegs rattling kernels into the sheller turned by horse tread outside, chaff dusting air thick as we sacked flint corn white for sale in town. But fair days shone best, rhythm of snap and toss building calluses tough as the work itself. Teaching yield came slow from hands joined steady. Those fields stripped bare left stubble whispering wind through winter, promise kept from spring's plow to fall's feast, corn binding our farm tight as shocks stood guard. Through plenty or lean, harvesting pulled us deep into season's turn, sweat and song making acres our own one ear at a time. Memories husked clean still when I pass old fields golden sun. Simple labor, honest bounty, days that fed body and built soul strong for years ahead. Before the first light touched the barn roof in our 1870s farm mornings, I'd slip quiet from the quilt-warmed bed and pull on boots still damp from yesterday's mud, heading out with the milk pail swinging empty at my side to the cow lot where the herd lowed soft in the gray, their warm breath clouding as I poured oats into mangers carved from split logs to draw them close for the milking that started every day right and steady. Pa showed me young how to approach slow from the side, bucket firm between knees while stool tipped under me on the straw-littered ground, hands wrapping teats with gentle squeeze and pull that sent thin streams hissing white into the foaming pail, rhythm building like a hymn till udders eased empty and cows switched tails content across my shoulders. Those Jerseys and Durhams stood patient in their stanchions, heads locked gentle by wooden pins we set each dawn, their sides warm and dusty from night in the lean-to, milk coming hot and sweet-smelling as I stripped the last drops with thumb and forefinger calloused thick from weeks of the same. We'd milk 6 or 8 head before sunup, switching pails when full to carry heavy to the milk house, where spring water ran cold over stones, cooling pans set shallow, so cream rose thick by noon for skimming into crocks mother sealed tight against flies buzzing early. No sleeping late on farm time. That routine pulled us from dreams into daylight, buckets sloshing full proof of care given faithful. Air hung heavy with manure and hay dust as brother joined for his cows down the line, our stools creaking companionable while calves bawled from the pen, waiting their share warmed in bottles from the dregs. Pa tested each pail with a sip straight from the foam, nodding at flavor clean of off notes from weeds they'd grazed, then strained through cheesecloth draped over a tub to catch hairs or grit before pouring to pans stacked neat on shelves we whitewashed yearly. Hands warmed quick to the task, chapped skins soothed by milk's balm, voices low with talk of which cow held back or freshened early with calf kicking lively by her side. Breaks came short with cornbread stuffed in pockets or milk sipped warm from a tin, leaning on posts to watch dew lift off pastures where they'd graze come noon, bellies full on clover weeds seeded after last haying. Mother called us in for coffee black and eggs fried quick once buckets lined the spring house, but we'd linger sometimes scratching ears or brushing flanks with curry combs hung on nails, bonds built quiet between man and beast that carried through storm or shine. Rain-slicked mornings saw us under the barn eaves, pails ringing louder on hard ground, cows huddled close against wet that dripped from shakes above. One dawn blurs clear when Bessie dropped her calf right there in the stall as milk streamed steady, Pa guiding the wobbly legs while I kept stripping her other side, new life bleeding sharp as we rubbed it dry with sacking and led to warm udder for first drink. That yield filled pails extra, cream rising high for butter come evening churn, supper richer for the gift. We'd clean stalls after, forking soiled straw to the midden heap for garden spread later. Fresh litter shaken loose from the mow ladder climbed slow with pitchfork loads. Neighbors traded milk runs sometimes when sickness laid one low, pails passed fence to fence with nods of thanks unspoken. Community held in every full bucket shared. Winters brought frost on breath and pale steaming clouds as we broke ice in troughs first. Milk frozen thick some mornings scraped careful to save. Through it all, dawn milking set the farm's pulse steady, nourishment drawn plain from land and herd, teaching patience in every pull and pour. Calves grew strong on skimmed milk slop, cows heavy again by fall from that care, circle turning sure as seasons. It mattered deep, those early hours, not just for food on table, but for rhythm rooting us to place and kin, memories flowing warm as fresh milk when I think back on barns lit faint by coming sun. Simple start to days long and full, milk binding us steady through the years. Storms rolled through our 1870s farm without mercy some nights, wind howling fierce and rain lashing rails loose from posts we'd set deep the summer before, pulling me and Pa out at first light, with hammers swinging heavy and calloused hands and coils of barbed wire draped over shoulders to mend the lines that kept cattle from wandering into the corn or neighbors' oats. The ground slick under boots as we walked the pastures scanning for breaks where stock poked heads through gaps. We'd start at the corner post braced with rocks and oak stakes driven firm with maul blows that rang sharp across the valley, stretching wire tight from spool turned steady on a stick between brothers' teeth, staples hammered quick into wood still wet from night's downpour, each twist and pull making the fence sing taut against the wind still gusting cold. Barbed wire came new those years, rolled off trains from Illinois factories, cheaper than rails split by hand from hickory groves, its barbed sharp triangles spaced just right to turn cows back, without slicing hide deep. Pa showed me the knots first, figure-8 loops that held strain when calves leaned heavy, then how to splice breaks with pliers twisting ends together strong as new, sweat beading despite chill, as we worked down the line, posts thumped upright with post-hole digger if they'd leaned, dirt packed tight around bases with boot, heels grinding firm. Brother fetched tools from the shed, nails in his pocket rattling like coins, his small hammer driving staples home beside ours, learning the feel of wood giving just so under iron. Air smelled of wet grass and iron tang from cut ends, gloves torn at fingers from barbs that caught careless hands. But blood-wiped on trousers kept us moving, row after row till the far fence stood whole again holding the herd safe. We'd test it strong, leaning shoulders against wire till it hummed protest, but held, Pa nodding satisfaction before turning to sagging gates hinged on leather straps we'd soak soft in linseed oil yearly. No fence meant lost stock or trampled crops, so those mornings turned wreck to ready, hammers echoing promise of pastures grazed right through winter's lean. Noon brought relief under the big elm, where Mother left bread and cheese wrapped in cloth, cider poured from jugs still cold from the spring house, talk turning to which posts needed replacing come dry spell, when ground gave easier to shovel. Afternoons saw us brace corners with cross wires diagonal against wind shear, or mend rail fences round the hay meadow where wire wouldn't hold, splitting cedar posts fresh from the woodlet with froe and mallet, notches cut true for rails dropped in place snug. Rain returned some days, slicking wire handles dangerous, but we'd wrap rags for grip and press on. Fences our first line against chaos of open land. One gale stands clear, fenced down half-mile along creek bottom where flood swelled sudden. Cows half out by dawn bawled lost till we chased them back with whoops and sticks, spending full day rebuilding higher with stone buttresses at posts, wire doubled thick against next blow. Neighbors rode over after with thanks unspoken, offering fence riders in turn for their lines, community stitched tight as our knots. We'd finish dark with lanterns hung on posts, last staples glinting, supper waiting hot with talk of weather's whim turned back. Winters froze wire drum tight, snaps fixed with torch warmed red from barn fire. Summer saw sags taken up before hay fever bent them low. Through it all, fence mending taught hold fast, work that guarded what we grew from theft or stray, hands blistered but sure. It mattered plain, those lines, bound fields like family bound by daily pull, memories stretched strong still when I see pastures fenced neat today. Calves stayed close because of it, herds grazed full without worry, harvest safe from wandering hooves that might have cost a season's hope. Simple task repeated faithful, fences held our world whole, proof of sweat poured steady into land's keep. Those days linger taut in mind, straight as wire pulled true. Harvest wrapped our 1870s fields in gold come late summer, wheat heads heavy and ripe bending low under August sun, calling neighbors for miles around to our barn lot, where we'd stack sheaves high from the binders pulled by teams of horses, gathering for the threshing bee that turned grain to sacks of clean kernels we'd trade or grind for flour through the winter months ahead. Pa fired up the big horsepower treadmill early, 8 percherons circling steady on the wooden platform geared to the separator's rumble, their hooves thumping even as men forked sheaves into the maw, where cylinder teeth beat straw loose from wheat that poured golden into bushels below. We'd work in shifts from dawn fog to lantern light, sweat-soaking shirts while women brought tables groaning under pies and beans from their kitchens, voices calling over the machine's roar in easy rhythm that made long days feel shared and light. Air filled thick with chaff dust that coated throats dry and eyes stinging. Bandanas pulled up as masks while flails swung in pairs for the last bundles when power jammed. Wooden clubs cracking sharp against barn floor till kernels danced free and straw flew light to the stacker arm pitching it high to the mow. Brother manned the blower pipe, cranking fan that shot chaff clouds out the barn door in yellow veils, coughing through grins when wind shifted back on us, while I sacked grain flowing steady from the sieve, burlap mouths tied tight with twists of straw after 50 pounds each hefted to the wagon bed. Neighbors pitched in equal, the Smiths from East Line with their boys strong on forks, Johnsons hauling water from the well to fill barrels where tin dippers hung cold for thirsty gulps between loads. Pa directed calm from the treadmill reins, easy now girls, to the lead mares straining uphill, grease squirted hot on bearings that squealed faint till smooth again, his eye on grain flow pure without weed seeds or smut balls that'd dock the price come market. Breaks came noon sharp with grace, said quick over platters passed hand to hand. Talk turning plain to yields per acre, or how rust-browned edges bad this year, but heads held plump anyway. Mother and sisters served coffee strong from the boiler, cornbread sliced thick, slathered sorghum from last fall's cane press. Laughter rising when Uncle joked on the treadmill horse that outpaced the men. Afternoons ground heavier with heat baking dust into mud on skin. Machines fed non-stop, till stacks dwindled low and sacks towered in crib corners against mice and damp. Every man pulling weight equal so no farm lagged behind. Rain threatened some years, holding us under cover with flails thumping patient on tarps spread thick, but fair days hummed best, engines chugging borrowed from town if horsepower tired, belts slapping leather till iron and steady beat. We'd trade turns at every job, learning neighbors' ways like how the millers winnowed cleaner or Andersons stacked tighter, skills swapped free as the labor given. 1 year blurs clear when hail flattened half the crop, but we threshed what stood anyway. Neighbors doubling crews till sacks filled near full, supper stretching long in a song around the fire pit, with fiddle scraped merry and tales of worse years pulled through together. Finished dark with lanterns swinging from rafters. Last kernels sifted clean as Pa shook every hand firm. Trust built stronger than any machine. Those bees fed more than bellies, wove community tight through shared sweat and full plates. Promise of return helped come their turn. Winters saw us grinding sacked wheat at the mill downriver, but threshing's rush set stores high. Flour bins full for mother's loaves rising yeast soft by hearth. No lone farm stood then. Neighbors made the plenty. Grain threshed proof of hands joined faithful across fences. It mattered deep, those gatherings, not just for harvest in, but for bonds holding through flood or fire next season. Memories sift clean still, golden as kernels tumbling free. Through plenty or skim, threshing pulled us into one another's keeping. Dust and song marking days that built more than barns. Built lives leaned on steady. Simple work turned neighborly, grain binding us sure as the sacks we filled. Rivers ran wide and steady through our 1870s world, carrying us up the Mississippi or Ohio on paddle-wheel steamships when town trips called for more than the wagon could handle, pulling me down to the levee at dawn with Pa, where docks bustled early with crates and cotton bales stacked high. Whistles blowing sharp as we climbed the gangplank steady over churning water to decks crowded with folks bound for St. Louis or New Orleans markets. Those boats sat low in the hull with tall smokestacks belching black coal smoke that hung thick over the wheel, churning foam white at the stern. Paddles slapping river loud as we found rail space amid trunks lashed down and hogs squealing in pens forward. Pa paid the fare in silver from his vest pocket to the mate calling, "All aboard." Then we leaned on rails feeling the deck tremble alive underfoot as lines cast off and the current took hold gentle but sure. Cabins ran narrow along the Texas deck for those with extra coin, but we stayed main deck with farmers like us. Wind whipping coats as the pilot rang bells from the wheelhouse high above, steering clear of snags that hid deadly under mud banks. Supper came from the galley. Beans and cornbread passed in tins with coffee hot from boilers that shook the planks faint. Talk flowing easy with strangers on prices downriver or floods last spring that washed half the levees gone. Nights brought lanterns hung on posts casting yellow over card games low stakes or fiddles scraping reels that set feet tapping despite the roll. River whispering past smooth when moon lit sandbars silver. Days passed slow watching banks slide by green with willows and farms much like our own. Herons lifting lazy from shoals as the wheel bit deep turning bends tight under captain's call. Pop wanted out packet boats faster for mail and passengers fancy up top. Ours the workhorse freighters hauling grain sacks we'd load sometimes for cash back home. Stops dotted short at wood yards where roustabouts swung axes chopping cordwood to stoke fires roaring red in furnaces, steam hissing white as pressure built for the next stretch, sweat black on faces but grins wide at the work's end. Children ran free amid cargo, chasing deckhands swinging leads to plumb depths safe for draft, while mother packed jerky and apples against the plain fare, her shawl tight against spray that flew back on turns. We'd disembark stiff-legged at landings marked by lanterns swinging, wagons waiting to haul us last miles home with tales for supper of the big world glimpsed on water. No rails reached every bend then, Steamships our bridge to towns where calico and tools traded for eggs and hides we'd brought careful. One trip stands clear bound for Memphis with a full hold of corn after bumper harvest, storm catching us mid-river with waves slapping high, and wool laboring slow, Pa gripping rails white-knuckled while we huddled under tarps till dawn broke clear. Folks sang hymns low through the worst, bonds quick in shared peril, docking late with thanks plain on every face. Those voyages shrank miles to days, brought news fresh as yesterday's paper bought dockside, stirring dreams of farther shores in boys like me. Rain-slicked planks, some runs calling for ropes hand over hand to hold steady, or ice floes in February runs crunching past bows as far north as we dared. Through calm or blow, boarding that gangplank pulled us from farm stillness into river life pulsing wide, lessons in trust of wheel and current carrying goods and kin safe. It mattered simple, those trips, not grand tours but lifelines to trade and touch beyond fences, memories steaming warm as boiler fires when I recalled decks alive with purpose. Neighbors shared passage costs, sometimes overloading with wool bales for mutual gain, supper tales swapped long after. Steamships bound our patch of earth to the nation's flow, paddles turning progress one slap at a time. Plain travel turned adventure quiet, rivers holding stories deep as their channels. Rails snaked through our 1870s countryside like iron veins carrying folks farther than horses ever dreamed, pulling Pa and me to the depot on market mornings with the wagon loaded light for the passenger car that clacked steady over ties toward county seats or river towns where we'd sell wool and buy plowshares. We'd buy tickets from the agent in his windowed shack, silver quarters handed over for seats in second class, where benches ran hard along wood-paneled walls, climbing aboard as the engine huffed steam black from its stack and whistle pierced sharp over the platform bustle of trunks and well-wishers waving handkerchiefs white. Conductor punched our pasteboards with brass clip, calling tickets please, in even tone before the cars jerked forward, wheels grinding gravel faint as prairie rolled wide under endless sky. Cars rode narrow with stove at one end casting heat uneven, seats facing forward 2 by 2 across a center aisle, where dust settled thick from open windows letting wind whip curtains faded from sun. We'd settle with lunch pail between knees, cornbread and cheese against station stops where meals rushed quick, 20 minutes to grab antelope steak tough as leather or eggs fried in iron skillets, at eating houses marked by bells ringing passengers back aboard or risk stranding in buffalo grass. Smoke trailed the tender car piled high with cordwood chunks fed roaring to the firebox, cinders flying back to speckle faces grimy by noon. Pa wiping his with sleeve end while pointing out trestles spanning creeks where trains swayed wild over rushing water below. Days blurred watching farms like ours give way to herds of antelope bounding fences or alkali flats shimmering white. Talk with seatmates plain on rail rates dropping yearly, or how Pullman sleepers up front cost extra for berths that folded down at night. We'd share jerky strips traded for stories of wrecks from loose rails or buffalo jammed on tracks. Bonds quick and shared jostle as cars rocked over joints clacking steady like a pulse. Stops dotted short at water tanks where tankers swung hoses gushing blue into tenders steaming. Boys selling pies warm from ovens at sidings calling fresh apple 10 cents through open doors. No ladies' car for us plain folk, just mixed seats where mother sat prim with sister's skirts tucked neat against coal soot sifting through cracks, her basket guarding against poor fare like prairie dog stew past as chicken at some depots. Nights came hard upright on planks padded thin, dozing shallow to lantern sway, and Will's song fading to snores around. Pa's coat over shoulders against chill seeping floors. Dawn brought more miles, sun gilding rails ahead as brakemen swung lanterns red for slow or green for go. Conductor hollering stations like poetry learned by heart. One run stands sharp to Chicago for seed corn after rust took half our stand. Cars packed tight with immigrants cradling bundles and salesmen in wool suits. Meals middling with coffee weak, but talk rich on land prices out west. Delay hit from washout forcing handcars ahead to probe tracks safe. Hours waited patient with songs struck up fiddle borrowed from a Dane, supper cold from pails when we rolled late. Those rails shrank weeks to days, brought world close with papers fresh on prices and politics, stirring notions of places beyond our quarter section. Rain-slicked rails, some trips, slowing crawl over hills where grades steepened, engines straining double headers, or snow in winter drifts shoveled frantic by crews with scoops swinging tireless. Through fair or foul, passenger cars pulled us steady, lessons in patience amid the clatter, teaching horizons bent but never broke. It mattered plain, those seats, not luxury but link binding farms to towns, kin to markets, memories clicking smooth as wheels over joints long after rails rusted quiet. Neighbors' road shares, sometimes pooling fares for bulk tools hauled freight behind. Supper tales swapped, depots lingering warm. Trains turned isolation small. Iron path promising more than miles covered. Promised connection deep as ties driven true. Simple rides wove lives wider. Prairies passing proof of progress plain. Dirt roads wound narrow through our 1870s farm country, pulling Pa and me out with the horse and buggy on market mornings when the team stood hitched patient by the gate, leather harness creaking fresh from saddle soap as we loaded crates of eggs and butter crocks wrapped careful in straw against the jolts ahead to town 10 miles over ruts worn deep by wagons heavy with grain. We'd back the bay mare steady between shafts, check traces tight and britching snug for hills where she'd brace against the pull, then climb to the seat with reins looped loose in Pa's hands calling, walk on soft as wheels turned gravel crunching under iron rims narrowed for mud that sucked boots come spring thaw. Air blew cool, with dew still on pastures we passed slow, the buggy top folded back on fair days letting sun warm our backs, while sisters waved from the porch promising pies for return. Top buggy suited us best, light as a feather for quick trips with seat high enough to see over corn rose gold in August, springs bouncing gentle over washboards carved by last rain, while Pa talked plain of prices at the store or how the preacher fared after his fever broke. We'd stop at creek crossings to water the mare from the trough chained there, her muzzle dipping deep, while we stretched legs cramped from planks worn smooth by years of bottoms shifting on the sway. Dust rose thick on dry runs, coating throats dry till we shared the jug, sloshing apple cider mother-pressed tart from windfalls, wiping mouths with sleeve ends stained from years of the same. Roads ran straight as rulers where surveyors cut lines true but twisted wild through hollows where roots humped high and rocks jarred teeth till we'd get down to pry them clear with bars kept under the seat. Neighbors passed nodding hats with rigs much like ours, sometimes tying on for talk of co-op buys on seed or who'd mend the bridge washed half away last flood. No rails to every door then. Buggies our steady legs carrying kin to school or church mile after mile. Harness bells jingling faint over birdsong in thickets lining the way. Noon found us tying reins to the hitching rail downtown, where merchants swept stoops clean, unloading goods for scales that clinked silverback in change for calico bolts or plow points stacked waiting. We'd eat lunch on a bench by the smithy, hearing hammers ring hot on anvils, shooing teams restless in line. Talk turning to weather holding or drought browning creek beds low. Afternoons rolled home slower with full loads shifting under blankets. Mare knowing the gate by heart, quickening near the lane, where smoke curled blue from our chimney, promising beans and ham slices thick. One trip lingers clear through thunder heads building black. Rain catching us mid-road with no cover, but the buggy top raised hasty. Water sheeting sides as Pa wrapped oilcloth tight round crates, while lightning cracked close enough to smell the ozone sharp. We'd push on laughing wet when thunder rolled away, steaming dry by supper with tales that set sisters giggling round the table. Those roads tested patience but taught trust in horse sense, and steady wheels turning home no matter mud or shine. Winter's blanketed ruts with snow-packed slick calling robes of bearskin traded from trappers up north, runners fitted sometimes for drifts deep as hubs, breath freezing white on scarves wound tight. Summer's baked dust, devil-high devils dancing ahead. Water stops doubled to keep the mare sound through heat that shimmered rails far off. Through fair or foul, horse and buggy paced our world sure. Lessons in care for beast that carried us faithful mile upon mile. Families shared rigs for weddings or burials. Seats doubled with boards across laps for young ones bouncing merry. It mattered plain. Those trips, not speed but sureness binding home to town. Kin to trade, memories rolling smooth as well-greased axles long after roads paved over. Simple travel turned days full, dust settling warm in mind when I recall reins firm in calloused hands. Rivers cut deep through our 1870s land like old friends separating one county from the next, pulling Pa and the wagon loaded heavy with wool bales down to the ferry landing where the Ohio or Mississippi ran wide and steady. Water lapping dark against the flat scow tethered by thick ropes that groaned under strain as the ferryman cranked the wheel slow to swing us across, when no steam tug waited for the crossing that saved days around bends too sharp for buggies. We'd roll aboard careful over planks worn slick from hooves and wheels, horses snorting wary at the hollow thump, while Pa paid a dime a head plus extra for the team, standing patient in traces. Then settle on benches amid other farmers with crates of chickens clucking soft as the poleman shoved off strong from bank, pushing the barge steady into current, pulling gentle but firm toward the far shore. Flatboats suited plain folk best, wide as a house with sides low and rails stout against waves that slapped sides when wind freshened upstream. The ferryman calling "Hold your stock," as ropes creaked through pulleys overhead, guiding true across the mile or so where depths hid snags from last flood. Air blew cool off water carrying fish smell sharp and mud from banks crumbling slow, Pa tying reins short to keep the mare calm while she stamped hooves nervous on wet deck, waves rocking us side to side like a cradle till land loomed green ahead. No fancy steam ferries every crossing then, just muscle and windlass turning sweeps against flow that tugged wagons sideways if pulling lagged. Crossings took half-hour steady, talk flowing easy with strangers on river rising after rains, or how the ice jam broke last February cracking loud as thunder sending flows grinding past. We'd watch eagles while high over bluffs while brother leaned rail peering depths clear in shallows where catfish rolled lazy bellies up, mother clutching basket tight against spray that flew back on turns. Ropes hummed tight, overhead snubbing currents pull. Ferrymen sweating arms long on the capstan bar walked round by helpers till midstream, where sweeps dipped deep feathering water smooth, shore swapping slow from home side to market side. Noon sometimes caught us waiting line at busy landings. Tin cups dipped from barrels for water hauled fresh, while horses grazed lead ropes on towheads sprouting grass. Pa shared jerky strips with the ferry crew, tales of wrecks from lines parted in storms or barges swamped sudden by steamboat wakes rolling high. Bonds quick and shared weight for the flats swing back empty. Unloading came gentle ramp, drop chain clanking to bank firm under wheels. Fare paid nod and thanks plain before roads climbed steep from landings rutted deep by heavy loads. One ferry run stands clear heavy with harvest wagons after wet fall swelled the Wabash bank full, crossing slow against wind whipping waves over deck till water lapped hubs and horses reared wild. Pa calming with low words while ferrymen pulled double hard to midstream, Eddie holding us safe. Folks sang hymns soft through the rock, docking late with boots soaked but grins wide at solid ground. Supper tales round hearth of rivers whim turned back. Those ferries bridged worlds split by water wide, lessons in trust of rope and sweep carrying goods and kinsure. Winters froze some shallows calling ice boats with sails patched from canvas, but deep channels ran open needing polars bundled thick against sleet-stinging faces. Summers baked landings, dusty thirst pulling barges sluggish till rains freshened flow. Through ice or flood, ferries held steady, work binding banks like family bound by daily need. Neighbors pooled crossings, sometimes overloading flats for mutual fares saved. Evenings swapped over fences long after. It mattered simple, those rides, not speed but sureness spanning divides deep as the rivers ran. Memories lapping gentle still when I hear water slap old pilings. Plain passage turned separation small, shores joined faithful one crank at a time. Rails and rivers didn't reach every corner of our 1870s land, so stagecoaches rattled over rutted trails to remote towns tucked in hills or prairies far from depots, pulling Pa and me out with a sack of mail and produce to the swing station where the Concord coach waited mud-splashed and sturdy. Leather thoroughbraces swaying as we climbed inside to seats facing each other crammed tight, with 3 strangers bound for county seats or trading posts 10 miles beyond where buggies feared to roll. Driver cracked his whip sharp over the 4-horse hitch fresh from the relay. Wheels lurching iron-rimmed over corduroy roads of logs sunk in swamp, while dust choked thick or mud slung high from ruts deep as boots on rainy runs, the coach pitching wild like a ship in gale, but holding true on springs that creaked protest mile after jolting mile. Inside smelled of sweat and tobacco chew from passengers, shifting uneasy on leather slings that rocked us side to side. Pa gripping the strap hung by windows glazed with mica rattling faint as wind whistled through cracks sealed with rags. We'd bounce knees knocking over washboards carved by last week's wagons. Talk starting shy, then flowing plain on how the overland line pushed west through Texas dust or Iowa mud, carrying mail faster than riders alone could manage. Stops every 10 miles at sod-roof stations where hostlers swung fresh teams in under 5 minutes flat. Supper came hasty at noon stands. Beans and sowbelly wolfed quick with coffee bitter from pots hung on chains. 20 minutes hollered before all aboard sent us rolling again into dusk painted orange over endless grass. Horses strained uphill snorting steam on cool mornings. Downhill brakes squealing wood on rims to check the plunge while driver walked the leaders careful round washouts from flash floods cutting trails sudden. No Pullman cushions for us plain folk. Just hard seats worn shiny where backsides ground through long hauls to places like Fort Chadbourne or Crossroads beyond railheads where settlers waited news from kin back east. Cinders from pipe bowls glowed dim when night fell. Lanterns swaying outside casting shadows dancing wild as coyotes yipped close. Pa sharing jerky strips to ease the gnaw till next relay brought cornbread warm from station, wives baking steady. Roads twisted wild through canyons where rocks jarred teeth loose or plains flat as tables baked dust devils high. Passengers piling out at streams to stretch legs numb while horses drank deep from troughs chained safe against thirst. Pa pointed out swing stations stocked with hay bales tall and oats in bins for the beasts that ate 20 pounds a run. Drivers swapping tales of holdups dodged or wheels busted mended hasty with rawhide thongs. Rain turned trails to gumbo clinging axles heavy slowing crawl to walking pace. Mud flung back, coating faces like war paint till we steamed dry under sun next day. One run blurs sharp to a mining camp off the Butterfield route after gold rumors pulled folks west. Coach overloaded with hopefuls clutching picks when a wheel sank hub deep in arroyo wash forcing all hands to dig out with shovels from under seats. Laughter mixed with curses as we rocked free muddy to the knees, but grinning at solid roll again. Driver spun yarns of the line's 2,800 miles from St. Louis to Frisco in 25 days straight. No sleep for men, turning relays endless. Our short hop mere taste of that grind. Those stages bridged the last gaps. Mail sacks thumping roof carrying letters yellowed with news months old, but fresh as morning to waiting arms. Winter's blanketed trails with snow calling snowshoes for relays or chains on wheels biting ice slick. Summer's parched water scarce at stations dug deep against drought. Through blow or blaze, stagecoaches pushed frontiers forward. Lessons in grit amid the bounce, teaching worlds connected thin as thoroughbraces stretched tight. Folks shared seats with mailbags, sometimes bulging knees sore. Evenings round station fires, swapping supper bowls long after coaches stabled dark. It mattered plain, those rides. Not comfort, but courage spanning wild's rails skipped. Memories jolting true still when I feel phantom sway of seats long splintered. Simple hauls turned remote real, dust settling warm as handshakes at journey's end. Word spread quick through our 1870s farm neighborhood when a barn burned to ash from lightning strike or wind scattered a roof come twister, pulling every able man for miles around at dawn's first call to the raising bee where logs he'd hewn himself stood waiting in the dooryard stacked neat with mortises chopped true. Axes biting notches precise as Pa checked levels bubble still before hoisting plates high on crib walls rising steady under hands joined strong from plowing teams and milking stools. We'd start with prayers short by the well where women poured coffee steaming from boilers swung on tripods. Then form lines shoulder to shoulder, lifting sills heavy as wagons into place with grunts low and even. Pegs driven home mallet blows ringing clear across pastures where wives watched skirts hitched against mud from night's rain. Neighbors arrived wagon after wagon. Smiths from East Fence with their boys grown tall on forks. Johnson's hauling saws sharp and keen for rafters we'd notch. Next, Voices calling easy over the lift building walls square as a carpenter's rule by noon, when sun-baked shirts damp clinging backs. Air filled thick with sawdust golden beams and sweat sharp mixed with coffee grounds trampled under boot heels circling the frame like ants on a hill. Pa directing calm from the top log, easy now left side. As we swung timbers overhead, ropes creaking through pulleys lashed to saplings guide firm against strain. Lunch came, tables dragged under oaks groaning under pies cooling flaky from berry thickets, and ham smoked slow last fall sliced generous, with beans simmered onions sweet from gardens hoed faithful. Grace said quick before forks flew, talk turning plain to whose silo needed chinking, or how the co-op price seed corn down river. No lone man built then. Those bees turned ruin to ready shelter for hay and stock through winter's lean. Hands blistered raw but bonds tighter than oak pegs driven deep. Afternoons ground on heavier raising bents braced crosswise against wind. Boys climbing rafters spider-quick to thread poles, while we below hauled thatch bundles from the stack for ridge capping tight against leaks. Hammers flashing steady in rhythm that matched heartbeats sure. Pa taught me young the square and line. Plumb bob swinging true from corners to catch lean before walls set. Lessons sinking deep as mortises locked firm under load. Laughter broke through when Uncle missed a peg and logs slipped wild, sending shoves playful, turning labor light as the quilt mother pieced waiting for the new loft. Sun dipped low, painting rafters red as we fitted doors swung wide on hinges forged at the smithy down road. Last braces nailed home before supper stretched long into fiddles scraped merry round fire pits crackling applewood chunks. Women shared quilt frames stretched taut with patterns passed grandmother to girl. Needles dipping stories of weddings danced under roofs just like this one rising proud by dark. We'd finish lanterns hung swaying from beams casting shadows warm. Handshakes firm all around with nods saying return ode when our barn called next. One raising stands clear after hail flattened the Andersons' place flat spring. Over 50 men turning crib to cap in one long day, with roof shakes split fresh from pines hauled green, supper pies stacked high thanks silent, and full bellies shared. Neighbors rode home dark trails, singing hymns low, new barn looming black against stars promise kept through storm or shine. Those gatherings fed more than roofs, wove community tight as rafters braced true, proof hands joined faithful turned disaster to standing strong. Winters called smaller crews for sheds, but same spirit pulled us through snow drifted deep. Breath steaming white on mallets swung slow. Summers baked saws dull quick, kneading whetstones past hand to hand patient. Through frost or heat, barn raisings held our world up, work binding farms like family bound by need playing. Boys grew men on those lifts, skills notched deep as logs we'd square together years on. It mattered simple, those days, not just for shelter raised, but for trust built high as ridges peaked true. Memories framed solid still, straight as walls we lifted shoulder to shoulder long ago. Sundays dawned quiet over our 1870s farm valleys with families rising early to hitch buggies or walk the mile to the white-framed church steeple poking sky above oak groves, where Pa preached plain from the pulpit built by hands that plowed beside his come Monday. Pulling us inside, doors swung wide on strap hinges to pews worn smooth from bottoms, shifting through hymns sung strong, without books voices blending sure on Amazing Grace, that rolled out the open windows across fields still dewy with night chill. Mother's smooth skirts starched stiff from sad iron heated on the cook stove, while sisters clutched McGuffey primers for Sunday school, where teacher Miss Harlan quizzed verses memorized careful through the week. Pa's voice booming steady on parables of the sower scattering seed, like our spring wheat flung wide, to take root faithful, if rain blessed kind. We'd sit shoulder to close in air thick with cedar from split shingles overhead, and pipe smoke faint from men gathered porch side. Before call to worship, Bibles thumped open to Proverbs, or Gospels read slow so all caught every word warning against pride, or promising rest to the weary burdened heavy as harvest loads. Services stretched long with prayer meeting first, where deacons bowed heads touching pew backs, a head confessing sin soft, or thanking for calves dropped healthy that week. Then the sermon rising fire on prodigal sons wasting inheritance like we'd seen neighbors lose farms to drink or drought unchecked. Altar calls came gentle with just as I am, sung soft drawing heads bowed low some mornings when conviction struck deep as paws I met wandering one straight. Hands raised trembling for mercy promised free without coin or count. Dinner on the grounds followed bell-ringing noon-sharp tables dragged under elms groaning under fried chicken skins crisp from lard splattered hot, and potato salad creamy with eggs from our own hens layered thick beside pickles canned sweet from vines cucurbits, climbed fences last summer. Women sharing plates passed hand to hand talk turning plain to who'd birthed or buried since last Lord's Day. Graveyard visits wove through it all feet crunching gravel paths lined white, where headstones leaned mossy marking kin gone, before granite chipped simple at the masons in town naming dates, close as last harvest to this one. Mother lingering long at grandma's plot planting wildflowers dug roadside, while we boys chased cousins round cedars whispering dares who'd run the circuit preacher's horse-tied shady. Singing schools met afternoons, some Sundays voices practicing shape notes from the chalkboard pa lettered careful building harmony tight for the fall convention, where circuits joined voices swelling like river at flood stage, sisters shining bright on altos pure as spring water, while brother fumbled tenor lines laughing good-natured till it smoothed right. No theater or fairs needed then. Church bound us deeper than blood with shared amens and plates passed equal rich or lean. Pa shook hands firm porch side after with nods, saying sermon landed true, while we'd hitch up slow reluctant to leave the fellowship, humming hymns homeward under sun's slanting gold, through locust branches heavy with bloom scent sweet as honey. Baptizings came summer branch runs preacher dunking converts full undercurrent swirling brown over rocks smooth water, closing over heads held down long enough to wash clean, then rising gasping joy shouts ringing banks, where families lined shores clapping wet hems slapping as they climbed chilled, but faces lit from within. Those gatherings fed souls hungry as bodies after plow day, lessons sinking deep as roots in black loam promising life beyond the furrow's end. One service stands clear after locusts stripped fields bare that July leaving stalks naked as winter trees, pa preaching manna from heaven falling white as frost with faith small as mustard seed, moving mountains of debt we'd face come tax time. Altar full that morning pledges whispered to share seed corn neighbor to neighbor till green shot hopeful by fall. Camp meetings stretched some Sundays to weeks end tents pitched rough under arbors pole-framed open to stars, where preaching rolled night-long torches flaring pitchy, knots chasing dark-back voices crying hallelujah till dawn pinked east. Through shine or storm church held our circled true, binding farms scattered wide into one body knit close as quilt squares pieced patient. Winters saw stoves red-hot fed hickory chunks against frost-creeping windows prayer meetings lit candle glow faces earnest and flicker, while summers opened doors wide letting meadowlark song weave through amens rising. No division split us, then rich man sat humble beside sharecropper hand joined in him, proving kingdom come plain on those pews. It mattered deep those Sundays not just for words proclaimed, but for souls gathered safe against worlds pulled binding us faithful one verse at a time memories echoing still like bells calling distant. Winter mornings bit sharp through our 1870s farm valleys, pulling children bundled thick in wool coats and mufflers wound tight against wind whistling down hollows, to the one-room schoolhouse perched on the crossroads, where Pa helped raise the frame log square just 5 years back. Its clabbered sides whitewashed fresh every spring and bell tower poking sky above maples shedding gold leaves that crunched under boots, as we filed inside stoves glowing red from hickory chunks fed careful by older boys before seats taken on benches plain smooth running rows down the single room, where Miss Harlan stood tall, at the blackboard chalk dust clouding her gray wool dress, as she called classes forward one by one from primers clutched tight in hands chapped raw from morning chores milking cows, or carrying slop to hogs before the long walk through frosted fields. We'd hang coats dripping melt on pegs lining walls papered yellow with newsprint pasted careful against drafts seeping cracks stuffed rag. Tight while slates clacked open across knees spelling CT cat, in careful strokes under her switch tapping rhythm steady, for the youngest clustered front on low forms, while we bigger ones ciphered some scratched quick on individual boards passed forward for checking against the big slate-framed arithmetic, where long division marched columns neat as corn rows plowed true. Air hung thick with coal smoke faint and lunch pails ticking warm on the entry shelf where cornbread-wrapped cloth steamed, beside apples bitten crisp at recess, when we'd spill out hollering to chase hoops rolled barrel staves over hard ground, or tops whipped humming against bare oak's teacher, watching strict from the doorstep, calling stragglers back sharp, when bell clanged iron tongue high for ciphering hour, where multiplication tables droned chorus. 8 times 7 is 56 voices. Blending sure from memory work beaten home nights by oil lamp, glow pa, quizzing hard till right. McGuffey readers opened worn spines to lessons on honesty, or pilgrim fathers landing rocky shores recited loud, eyes fixed ahead, no stumbling aloud lest switch whisper across knuckles pink, but quick forgiven with a nod, when lines rang clear building words into sentences, penned copybook, pages ruled fine blue, for penmanship looped graceful under steel nibs, dipped inkwell black from powder mixed water weekly. By the monitor chosen straight, a scholar sweeping floors and hauling wood for pay and pennies saved Christmas candy. Recess brought snowballs packed tight when drifts piled high forts built quick behind the privy melting faces red, as we wrestled tumbling drifts teacher, joining sometimes snowball fight rare laugh lines crinkling eyes before dinner bell rang tin shrill tables dragged center groaning sausage fried lard hot, and potatoes boiled jackets on from cellars dug deep under the floorboards where turnips stored sweet against frost. Geography followed maps, pulled roller shades down walls, colored lands pink for England, green for Ireland, rivers traced finger wide, tracing Mississippi snaking south, like the big one pa, ferried over market days while history told Washington crossing Delaware ice floes crunching, or Lincoln log cabin born poor, like us scratching rise, to rail splitter tall freeing slaves with pen stroke firm. Girls stitched samplers afternoons, needles flashing cotton twist, blessed be nest that gathers this bird. Letters even under watchful eye practicing future, mending baskets full evenings. While boys whittled sticks knife careful, lest edge catch thumb blood staunch rag quick back to cipher without fuss. Spelling bees capped Fridays classes matched head to head, define accommodate, stumbled wrong sent seat, shamed, while winners glowed cheeks pink pinning star felt badge board, till next match ribbons blue, for first at county fair, held fall barn lot, where schools joined contest fierce, but friendly prizes apples polished bright. Spelling built vocabulary deep Webster's blueback speller thumped desks words like perseverance, rolling tongue long practiced home Pennsylvania testing evenings round hearth tales woven how he spelled down whole district age 12 winning Bible black leather gilt edge still mantle proud. No grades formal, then just promotion by mastery youngest readers, front building, to advanced, back wrestling algebra fractions reduced common denominator chalk, crunching board explanations patient teacher, walking rows checking slates wrong, erased quick try again, till right sank muscle memory sure. One term stands clear blizzard trapping us 3 days stove fed steady books read cover to cover ciphered ahead, while teacher boarded our house milking with pa nights, snow drifted doors shut tight, tales spun ghost stories hushed, or pilgrim progress retold dramatic fireside, when drifts eased home, sleds pulled friendly. Holidays brought programs stage boards nailed recitations, Mary had little lamb, voices piping clear parents packed pew benches clapping loud treats, oranges rare bright, as gold from peddler sleigh candy sticks peppermint sharp jawbreakers swirled colors tongues stained happy. Those schoolhouses knit young minds tight subjects plain, but solid rooting letters numbers morals deep, as cellar turnips, feeding through lean years ahead. Summers shortened terms hang calling hands home, but fall pushed long days stove cold windows propped sticks breeze sweet, hay sent drifting fields lessons marching steady building scholars from farm boys girls dreaming wider than quarter sections fenced tight. No fancy colleges needed, then one room held worlds, atlas opened oceans crossed pen stroke, dreams, soared free wings words spelled true. It mattered deep those crossroads seats, not just for learning drilled wrote, but for futures plowed straight, as furrows lessons enduring long after bell silenced quiet. Country stores stood at crossroads of our 1870s farm world like beating hearts where dirt roads met under big oaks dripping Spanish moss, pulling wagons loaded light with eggs and crates nested straw, or butterprints stamped clover leaf, from mother's churn to trade for calico bolts unrolling blue as June sky, or plugged tobacco dark, as earth pa, sliced fine for his pipe evenings, porch rocker creaking slow, while we kids pressed noses to dusty glass panes watching the scales clink, brass weights sliding. Grooves till merchant Mr. Harlan nodded fair trade, and wrapped goods brown paper tied string strong against the bounce home over ruts wagon wheels singing gravel song all afternoon. We'd hitch teams to rails worn smooth by countless traces snapped free inside doors jingled bell sharp announcing fresh faces barrels stood tall salted pork sides hanging hook salt pork rind white as snow beside crackers soda crisp in barrels scooped paper twists nails assorted bins gleaming iron points sizes fine. For shoeing to heavy spikes framing barns raised neighbor quick while shelves groaned syrup molasses thick gold poured tin measures sweet as promise against winter's lean and coffee beans green roasted hand crank grinder aroma filling air heady as church camp meeting where we'd linger afternoons swapping news from rail towns pa heard steamship dockside. Counter ran oaken long scarred knife nicks where cheese wheels yellow cut wedges wire singing through rind shared crackers saltines crisp with applejack poured shot small for men, leaning elbows talk flowing thick on hog prices Louisville market down 10 cents dressed weight, or corn futures, Chicago board traded wild after rust browned half the stand last July wives fingering lace trimmings Nottingham fine for Sunday collars starched stiff, while sisters picked ribbons satin slick hair bows. Dreamtown fair, where they'd shine queen contestants hoop skirts swirling fiddles sawing merry. Post office tucked corner pigeonholes brass, numbered waiting letters yellowed edges kin East Farms sold city factories, or papers folded tight Lincoln's words faded, but bold on Union, held firm merchants sorting mail sacks canvas, stamped Wells Fargo rumble stagecoach dust, still clinging corners boys crowding, close hoping Valentine's lace hearts, or catalogs Sears dream pages dresses silk, we'd never wear, but poured pictures dreaming wider than. Quarter sections fenced tight. Candy case glass gleamed peppermint sticks red white twisted jawbreakers swirled colors tongues stained happy lemon drops sour puckering lips traded pennies egg money clutched tight while licorice whips black pulled long shared cousins chasing hoop staves schoolyard recess bell distant clanging iron call back slates ciphering sums 8 times 756 drone steady. Blacksmith shop adjoined hammers ringing anvil sparks flying hot shoeing teams restless stamping stalls pa talking bits curb chains silver chased fancy. For trotter matched Mares Bay smooth gate county fair races dust devils dancing track oval sawdust packed tight cheers rising finish line thundering hooves next stretch photo newspaper grainy next week pride swelled chests. Women gathered quilting frames stretched taut patterns star log cabin pieced feed sacks faded flower prints blue-red patchwork warm winter nights mothers stitching tiny invisible hems teaching girls needles flash even rose stories woven thread grannies wedding quilt mended babies spilled milk patched strong lasted generations while men whittled sticks knife wickering shavings curling white hearth talk turning co-op formed Grange Hall log raised last spring meetings monthly dues paid Dues paid seed bought bulk cheaper rail rates fought Washington speeches fiery trust busted monopolies bound farmers tight shoulder plow furrow straight. Saturdays swelled busiest buggies lined rails double parked tongues wagon tongues overflow yard dogs barking kids tumbling grass chasing chickens escaped coop merchant hollering orders shelves restocked crackers barrels topped salt pork weighed scales true gospel hymn Sunday lingering minds voices low humming leaning on everlasting arms safe secure home. One Saturday blurs bright peddler arrived tin peddler sleigh mule hitched dusty roads trunk open marvels combs tortoise shell mirrors chased silver thimbles gold wash lace Brussels fine notions galore women crowding close fingers tracing dreams bought bolts unrolled counters piled high while pa traded pelts fox red silver fox silver snares set creek runs line caught beaver felt hat fancy town prices fetched premium New York fancy felt beaver felt supper stretched long table groaning beans hem cornbread slaw pickled beets ruby jars cellar fetched talk store tales spun merchant's daughter courted schoolmaster tall spectacles pinched nose poetry red McGuffey tinder pages blushing cheeks matched ribbons hair bow Sunday church shining bright organ pump bellows wheeze hymns swell congregation pew packed full. Winter's slowed snow drifts blocking roads store stove pot-bellied fed cold chunks red glow men huddled coats unbuttoned talk deep seed catalogs poured pages dreaming spring, plows shiny McCormick, traded old walkhorse, iron moldboard, traded fair, shake handshake firm, no papers needed, word bond, stronger ironclad. Summer's baked dust, thick throats, parched lemonade pitcher, sweating glass merchant, poured nickels, dimes, clinking tiller jar, belly swelled, full bellies, laughing tails, spun horse, trading swapped, matched, bay, gelding sway back, swapped sorrel colt, promise grow straight. Through shinestorm store held crossroads, steady binding farms, scattered wide, thread, trade, talk, trust, deep roots, lone black, feeding souls, hungry connection, kin blood. No isolation wrapped us tight, then store bridge, worlds, farm, town, promise, progress, plain calico bolts, plowshares, sharp candy sticks, sweet memories, sweet still tongue tip, dust, settled warm mind, recalls, bell jingle doors, swung wide welcomes, plain generous heart merchants, nod fair trade always. Simple hub, turn lives rich, neighborly, one bolt, one bar, one twist, candy time. Dusk settled soft over our 1870s farm valleys with lanterns flickering alive in the new Grange Hall log walls chinked tight against autumn winds pulling neighbors wagon after wagon through ruts deepening from harvest rains to the monthly meetings where Pa served master, presiding gavel-wrapped oak table steady calling order from the hum voices blending talk on rail rates climbing steep as Kansas Bluffs Chicago board trading corn futures. While we'd gather chairs, scraped rough-hewn benches. Filled shoulder close oaths whispered low binding patrons husbandry sworn secret against monopolies squeezing blood from plow hands honest. Dues paid quarter silver pooled co-op, seed, wheat bags stamped collective bought bulk cheaper than store Harlan marked solo. Air hung thick tobacco chew dark juice spat discreet tin cups passed water while bucket dipped deep talk flowing plain on McCormick Reaper patents tying farmers' debt, iron moldboard plows traded old walkhorse for new models gleaming factory. Fresh, but prices stung deep as frostbite crops, while women planned supper quilt frames, stretched star patterns, pieced feed sacks, faded flower prints, blue patchwork, warm winter nights, needles, flashing stories, granny weddings, mended babies, milk spills, patched strong generations, lasting shared patterns, past handgirl teaching hems, tiny invisible future, mending baskets, full evenings, hearth glow. Rituals opened, solemn robes donned, white linen draped shoulders, symbols, wheat sheaf, emblazoned gold thread, torches, flamed pine, knots, smoky lessons drawn, scripture, harvest fields gleaned, Leviticus corners, left poor, binding, rich, lean, equal shares divided, fair no, one amid plenty, while lectures rolled, low voices veiled secrets, patrons, oath, loyalty, mutual aid against Pinkerton spies, busted strikes, rail, yards, East Pa, quoting Grange journal pages. Yellowed arrived post office last Thursday wisdom. Oliver Hudson Kelly founder Vision Co-ops spanning states, stretching California gold fields, East Maine lobster traps, uniting plow against purse strings tight. Supper followed grace, said quick tables dragged center groaning beans, hem cornbread slaw pickled beets, ruby jar cellar fetched, fiddle scraped catgut, bow rosin dust flying feet, tapping dirt floor packed smooth from dances past collar, hollering do as I do Alamand left swing partner, right promenade home boys blushing cheeks red matched ribbons. Sisters hair bows Sunday church, shining organ pump bellows wheeze him swell, now reels merry quadrilles square, danced lantern sway shadows dancing walls wild coyotes yipping distant hills. Debates heated after plates cleared men pounding fists oak tables scarred knife nicks prices tobacco Louisville market down dressed weight hog futures shaky rust brown half stand July women voting proxy skirts tucked neat resolutions pinned secretary ledger bound black inkwell filled powder mixed weekly arguing parcel post Washington fought rural free delivery, dreamed buggy star route mail carriers, thundering hooves, dust devils track county fair. Oval sawdust pack cheers, rising finish line. Next stretch photo newspaper grainy pride swelled chests. Boys slipped out moonlit yard chasing lightning bugs jars hold tin lids courting whispers girls porch swings creaking low dreams town beyond quarter sections fence tight, while inside songs swelled sweet by and by, voices pure alto tenor bass harmony tight shape notes practice schoolhouse chalkboard building convention fall circuits joined swelling river flood stage sisters shining bright brother fumbled tenor lines laughing. Good-natured smoothed right bonds knit deeper blood shared sweat plow furrow straight. One meeting blurs sharp after hail flattened crops flat spring resolutions fiery trust busted rail barons' speeches, thundered Grange Journal, quoted resolutions, mailed senators, speeches, fiery trust, busted monopolies, bound farmers tight shoulder, closing prayer, knelt boards, rough knees, bent committing fields, lords keep through lean years, seed, shared neighbor green, shot hopeful fall, dues collected, tin past row pockets, emptied nickels, dimes, silver quarters, jingling promise. Mutual aid, doctor's bill covered, widow fever took man last winter, wood hauled, storm cellar stocked beans, quart jars, ruby glow, lantern light, supper stretched, long fiddle sawed, polka, lively feet flew, skirts swirled, dust rising, merry laughter echoing, hills dark velvet, stars pricked bright. Dances spilled, midnight collar, voice, horse steps, do as I do, stamped rhythm, heartbeats, sure no liquor flowed, temperance, oath sworn, patrons, pure heart, body, mind, clear dawn, chores, milking dawn, cows lowing, patient stalls. Winter's blanketed roads, snow drifts, deep sleighs, runners, fitted robes, bearskin, traded trappers, north stove, fed cold chunks, red glow, huddled close, resolutions, planned spring, co-op, silo, raised neighbor, quick summers, baked dust, thick lemonade, pitcher, sweating glass, poured nickels, dimes, clinking tiller jar, belly swelled, full bellies, tails spun, horse, trading swapped, bake, gelding, sway back, sorrel, colt, promise, grow straight. Through shine, storm, Grange held, crossroads, steady binding, farms, scattered wide, thread, talk, trust, deep roots, lone black, feeding souls, hungry connection, kin blood, swelled, fuller gatherings, monthly, pulling loan, holds together strong, oak pegs, barn raised, shoulder. No isolation, wrapped tight, then Grange bridge, worlds, farm, promise, progress, plain resolutions, pin plowshares, sharp, candy sticks, sweet, no candy sticks, sweet memories, sweet still tongue tip, dust, settled warm mind, recalls, gavel, rap, odes, whispered dances, merry, simple hub, turn lives rich, neighborly, one resolution, one real one, dues, time, bonds, enduring, long frost, melted fields, green promise, kept faithful. Evenings fell gentle over our 1870s farmstead with lamps trimmed, low kerosene wicks turned blue, flames steady against windows, rattling faint from wind, sighing, eaves pulling the family close round the hearth, where hickory logs snapped, sparks gold up the chimney, stone blackened, generations smoke, drawing us to rockers creaked smooth from bottoms, shifting slow paw, whittling stick knife, wickering shavings, curling white hearth, swept clean broom, corn bristles. Next morning, while mother mended socks, darning eggs, smooth wool pulled tight, needles flashing, even rose stories spun warm, binding us tighter than quilts, pieced feed sacks, faded flower prints, blue patchwork spread, knees against chill seeping cracks, stuffed rag tight, drafts, chased back, fire, glow faces, ruddy shadows, dancing walls, papered newsprint, yellowed edges, Lincoln words, faded bold, union held firm. Pa started, soft voice rumbled, deep chest, tails, grandfather chased, panther black, as night creek, bottom moon, silvered willows, whippoorwills. Calling eerie through hollows, rifle, buckhorn sights, steady powder horn, primed cap, snapped sharp cat, tumbling rocks, splashing cold water, red dawn, found pelts, stretched boards, salt rubbed, thick, trade store, Harlan silver quarters, jingling pocket plowshares, bought iron moldboard, gleaming factory fresh, traded old walk horse, sway back, matched, bake, gelding promise, grow straight, county fair, oval, dust devils, dancing track, cheers, rising neck stretch, photo, newspaper, grainy. Next week, pride, swelled chests, boys. Dreaming trotter, matched, Mares, smooth gate, ribbons, blue pin, proud. Mother joined, yarn spun, granny spun, while humming treadle, foot pump, spindle, whirring flax, carded fine distaff, loaded stories, Irish kin, potato famine, crossed ocean steerage, bunks, narrow salt pork, barrel scoop, twists, paper crackers, soda crisp, shared seasick, swells Atlantic, gray-green gulls, wheeling foam, white New York harbor, lady torch, raised, welcome land, milk, cows, dawn, lowing stalls, hay-tossed fork, deep breath, steaming, white Jersey flanks, warm udders, heavy stripped, pale, foaming sweet cream, rose thick, skimming crocks, sealed cheesecloth flies, buzzing summer thick. Sisters leaned close, eyes wide, ghost tails, headless horsemen galloped, crossroads, midnight, cape billowing, wind-mown, hollow pumpkin, head grinning jack, o lantern, carved knife, careful seeds, roasted salt, crackling pan, treat, rare peddler, tin, sleigh, mule, dusty roads, trunk, open combs, tortoise shell, mirrors, chased, silver thimbles, gold wash, lace, Brussels, fine notions galore, fingers, tracing dreams, bolts, unrolled counters piled high. Supper stretched beans, hem cornbread slaw, pickled beets, ruby jars, seller fetch talk, peddler yarns, spun merchant daughter, corded schoolmaster, tall spectacles, pinched nose, poetry, McGuffey, tinder pages, blushing cheeks, ribbons, hair, bow Sunday, church, shining organ, pump bellows, wheeze hymns, swell congregation, pew packed full. Bible stories followed, paw thumping, black leather, gilt edge, mantle proud, David sling, world, Goliath, helmet, brass, spear, giant tumbled, dust, cheers, valley, echoed, shepherd boy, king, throne, harp strings, plucked psalms, soothing Saul, torment, spear thrown, wild mist, mark, close mercy shown, enemy bound feet, forgiven strong weak, made mighty, locust stripped, fields bare, July, preaching manna, heaven falling, white frost, faith, mustard seed, mountains, debt, tax time, altar full, pledges, whispered share seed, corn. Neighbor, neighbor, green shot, hopeful fall circle, turned seasons, sure calves grew strong, skimmed milk, slop, cows, heavy fall care, dawn milking, set pulse, steady nourishment, drawn land, herd patience, pull pour. Laughter broke Uncle Tail's horse, trading swapped, sorrel, colt, promise straight, bay, gelding, hidden flaw, lameness, creek, crossing, tested water, deep, hub wagon wheels, turning slow, mud sucked boots, spring, thaw, dust rose, thick throats, parched lemonade pitcher, sweating glass merchant, poured nickels, dimes. Clinking tiller jar, belly swelled, full bellies grinning fair, shake handshake, firm word bond, ironclad, no papers needed, trust, deep roots, lone black. Winter nights, stretched long, snow drifted doors, shut tight, stove fed, cold chunks, red glow, huddled, close catalogs, poured pages, dreaming spring plows, McCormick reaper patents, dead iron. But hope flickered fire, low tails, Indian summer corn dance moons, full circle fires, burning high braves, painted ochre feathers, eagle tall peace pipe, past council oak tree, spread wide branches, shade merciful creek runs, trout, speckled jumping riffles, fly rod, bamboo split cane. Pot-tide nights, hook, snelled gut leader. Tapered fine casts, ripple line, dry dropper, mayfly hatch, evening bite, savage fight, reel, screaming line, stripped, backing, stripped, backing, netted silver scales, flash pan, fried cornmeal, crust, crisp butter, churned cream, risen, thick, dasher, wooden slats, squeak, rhythm, steady arms, ache butter, yellow salt, worked grains, fine, cool cellar jars, sealed wax, dipped cloth tops, flies kept out, winter spread, thick bread, yeast risen, soft hearth, baked oven, Dutch, iron lid coals. Raked top, bottom, crust golden. Knife. Sliced steam rising sweet, thanks ground given good. One evening blurs, clear storm rage, shutters banging, chimney howled, wolf wind tails spun, long Paul Bunyan blue, oxbabe footprint, lakes formed north, woods logger, giant axe, bit pine, straight grain falling, crash, thunder, shook cabin rafters, mother, hushed voices, prayer bowed. Heads lords keep through, blow shine, circle knit, close fire, dying embers, poked alive, poker wrought, iron hook, bent careful coals banked, ash thick smoldered, dawn, chores milking, dawn cows, patient lowing stalls. Breath cloud white. Lantern sway, beam yellow fork, haymow ladder climbed, slow pitchfork loads, fresh litter shaken loose. Songs swelled final, sweet bye-bye, voices pure, alto, tenor, bass, harmony shape, notes, schoolhouse, practiced, convention, fall circuits, joined river flood sisters, bright brother tenor, fumbled, laughing, smooth bonds, deeper blood sweat, plow furrow straight, no isolation, wrap tight gatherings, pulled holds together, oak pegs, barn raised, shoulder crossroads, church store, grange steady binding. Scattered farms, thread talk, trust souls, fed connection, kin swelled, fuller hearth, glow enduring, frost melted fields, green promise kept faithful. Summer's windows propped, sticks breeze, meadowlark song, weave tails spun, porch rocker creaking, paw pipe, glowing cherry bowl, tobacco plug, sliced fine store, traded butter prints, clover stamped eggs, crates, nested straw scales, clink brass weights, fair nod, wrapped brown paper, string strong, bounce home ruts, wheels, singing gravel song, afternoons, simple evenings, turned rich, neighborly stories, shared one yarn, one legend, one verse time, memories, warm tongue tip, dust settled heart. Recalls Rocker Creek knife. Wicker fire snap, voices low blending, sure long shadows, stretched floors worn, smooth generations, walked same path home true. Supper plates cleared away from the oilcloth table, scrubbed clean, with soda, ash water bucket dipped, well deep our 1870s farm evenings turned to churning butter, when mother fetched the dasher churn crockery tall, glazed brown from potters, will set parlor floor rags spread neat against splashes cream skimmed thick, that morning from milk pans cooled spring house stones, dripping constant udders, stripped dawn cows, lowing patient stalls, jersey flanks warm hands, squeezing rhythm him thin streams. Hissing pale foam rising sweet calling us round wooden dasher slats carved hickory smooth paw, planed years back handle long grooved palm sweat grip firm, as mother pumped steady up down creak squeak, wooden pegs turning gears, faint song blending crickets chirp windows propped sticks breeze meadowlark hush fields mowed, hay scent drifting barn loft stuffed fork deep ladder, climbed slow pitchfork loads, shaken loose litter fresh calves bald pin waiting share warm bottles. Dregs skimmed slop strong. Growing fast coats glossy fall heavy brood stock. Air-filled, thick cream sweet turning tangy dasher rising clumps yellow gathering granules salt worked fine later cool cellar jars sealed wax, dipped cloth tops flies, buzzing summer, thick mother testing tongue dab clean off sour notes, weeds grazed cows butterfat pure gold trade store Harlan scales clink brass weights fair nod prints stamped clover leaf, wrapped paper, string strong bounce wagon ruts wheels singing gravel song, afternoon eggs crates nested straw, calico bolts unrolled blue June sky, plug tobacco dark paw sliced pipe cherry bowl glowing rocker creek porch evenings wind sighing eaves. Brother took turns arms ache young muscles building strong paw watching steady easy now full stroke lessons patience pull pour milking dawn set pulse farm nourishment land herd while sisters churn small churn doll size play aprons tied neat future wives mending baskets full needles flash even rose stories granny wool humming flax carded distaff loaded spindle were treadle foot pump Irish kin potato famine crossed steerage salt pork crackers soda crisp seasick swells gulls wheeling foam white lady torch welcome land milk cows dawn lowing breath steaming white rhythm built steady clink dasher hit bottom splash cream froth rising lid peak whole yellow flex dancing whirlpool magic paw whittling stick knife wickering shavings curl white hearth swept broom corn bristles Bible black leather gilt edge mantle David sling Goliath helmet brass tumbled dust cheers valley shepherd boy king harp psalms soothing torment pipe tobacco plug traded butter prince eggs crate scales clink fair shake handshake firm word bond iron clad no papers trust roots lone black mother paused rinsed dasher scalding water kettle swung tripod boiled steady rag wrung hot wiped inside sweet work salt crystals coarse rubbed grains butter washed cold water spring house churned rinsed clear way drained sieve cheesecloth flies kept out padded wooden paddle slabs firm packed molds carved oak clover leaf pressed deep lifted clean prints stacked crock cool cellar steps ladder dark jars lined shelves turnips sweet potatoes dug deep frost bit ground apples windfalls cider pressed tart jug sloshing buggy trips town hitching rail merchant swept stoops clean breaks short cornbread pocket stuffed milk sipped warm tin lean post watch do lift pastures clover seeded hang bellies full graze noon mother called coffee black eggs fried quick buckets lined spring house lingered scratching ears brushing flanks curry combs nails bonds quiet man beast storm shine rain slick mornings pails ringing hard ground cows huddled ease wet drips shakes above Bessie dropped calf stall milk streamed paw guided wobbly legs rubbed sacking let utter first drink yield extra cream high butter evening churn supper richer gift clean stalls forked midden heap garden spread fresh litter mow ladder slow one evening blurs clear storm rage shutters banging chimney howled dasher pumped steady lightning cracked close ozone sharp thunder rolled in voices low amazing grace blended squeak rhythm unbroken butter came firm gold salt work tongue test pure trade next market Memphis full hold corn bumper harvest waves slapped while labored paw gripped rails huddled tarps dawn clear folks sang bonds quick peril docking late thanks plain supper tales hearth Paul Bunyan blue ox babe footprint lakes logger giant axe pine straight thunder shook rafters hushed prayer bowed heads circle knit fire embers poke coals banked ash smolder dawn shores lanterns sway beam yellow winter nights stretched snow drifted doors stove coal red glow huddled catalogs poured plows McCormick reaper dead hope flickered low summers baked dust lemonade merchant poured nickels dimes clinking tiller jar full bellies horse trading swapped sorrel colt bay gelding hidden flaw lameness creek tested water deep mud sucked boots dust rose throats parched grin fair shake through shine storm churning set rhythm sure binding family close dasher creek voices low blending hearth glow lessons endure frost melted fields green promise kept faithful calves strong skim milk slop cows heavy fall care dawn patience pull pour simple task turned rich butter yellow spread bread East risen soft crust golden steam sweet thanks ground, given good memories, sweet tongue tip cream thick, rising dasher, steady hands calloused faithful generations churned. Same song creak squeak. Blending sure long shadows floors worn smooth path home true. Lamps trimmed low kerosene wicks blue flame steady against windows rattling wind sighing eaves our 1870s farm evenings turned to mending clothes when mother fetched needle case bone carved pa whittled smooth thread spools cotton twist black white blue unspooled careful scissors shears ground keen store Harlan traded butter prints clover stamped eggs crates nested straw scales clink brass weights fair nod wrapped brown paper strings strong bounce wagon ruts wheels. Singing gravel song afternoon. Pulling family close parlor rocker creaked bottoms, shifting slow thimbles, silver chased poked fingers callous thimbles poked steady cloth spread, knees darning egg glass smooth, wool pulled tight socks heels thin milk pails wrung hard cows lowing dawn stalls jersey flanks warm udders stripped thin, streams, hissing foam sweet cream, rose thick spring house cooled stones dripping constant jars, sealed cheesecloth flies, buzzing summer thick. We'd gather round oilcloth table scrub soda, ash water bucket. Dipped well deep brother shirt torn plow day brambles snagged fence mending row stitched, even back small invisible hems future, wives learn needles flash stories granny, wool humming flax carded distaff loaded spindle, were treadle foot pump Irish kin potato famine, cross steerage salt pork crackers, soda crisp seasick swells gulls wheeling foam, white lady torch welcome land milk, cows dawn breath steaming white, while sisters patch dresses, aprons tied neat. Doll churns play butter gold salt. Worked grains find cellar jars wax, dipped cloth tops, kept flies out winter spread bread, yeast risen soft crust golden knife, slice steam, rising sweet, thanks ground given good. Air hung thick kerosene faint smoke blended wool damp from washboard tub Monday ritual rub soap homemade live fat rendered hog sides hanging hook salt pork rind white snow barrels stood tall stores scoop paper twists nails bins gleaming iron points shoeing heavy spikes barns raised neighbor quick shelves grown syrup molasses thick poured tin measures sweet winter lean coffee beans green roasted hand crank grinder aroma heady church camp meeting lingered afternoons swapping news rail towns pa. Heard steamship dockside. Mother tested seams tug firm no pull threads knotted back double strong patches cut feed sacks faded flower prints blue star log cabin quilt patterns pieced warm winter nights needles flash stories weddings mended babies milk spills patch strong generations lasting shared handgirl teaching hems tiny future mending baskets full evenings hearth glow pa whittling stick knife wickering shavings curl white Bible black leather gilt edge mantle David sling. Goliath helmet. Brass tumbled dust cheers valley shepherd boy king harp psalms soothing torment pipe tobacco plug sliced fine cherry bowl glowing rocker creek porch wind sighing. Rhythm built steady snip thread bite scissors steel cold cloth folded neat pins stuck cushion strawberry embroidered red berries sent faint juice stained fingers summer picking thorns pricked blood wiped apron quick back stitch without fuss brother pants knee down slide barn loft hay fork loads pitched ladder climbed slow dust moats, danced lantern beam yellow calves, bald pin waiting bottles, warmed skim milk, slop, cows heavy fall care dawn patience, whole poor nourishment. Land herd paw watching. Steady, even now full stroke, lessons muscle memory, sank, deep seasons sure. Sisters hemmed skirts lengths grew tall dresses, let out seams piece triangles feed sacks bright calico bolts unrolled blue June sky store fingered lace Nottingham fine Sunday collars starched sad iron heated stove swung tripod boiled rag wrung hot wiped sweet work smiles shared candle glow faces earnest flicker winter nights snow drifted doors shut tight stove cold chunks red glow huddled close catalogs poured pages. Dreaming spring plows McCormick Reaper patents debt iron hope flickered low. Breaks short cornbread pocket stuffed milk sipped warm tin lean post dew lift pastures clover seeded hang bellies full graze noon mother called coffee black eggs fried buckets lined spring house lingered scratching ears brushing flanks curry combs nails bonds quiet man beast storm shine rain slick mornings pails ringing hard ground cows huddled eaves wet drips shakes Bessie dropped calf stall milk streamed pa guided wobbly legs rubbed sacking led utter first drink yield extra cream high butter evening churn supper richer gift clean stalls forked midden heap garden spread fresh litter mow ladder slow pitchfork shaking loose calves coats glossy fall brood stock heavy One evening blurs clear lamp flared sudden chimney, soot wick trimmed hasty shadow, jumped walls wild mother calm needle, threaded dark blue suit pa Sunday, best worn thin cuffs frayed sermons, thundered Grange Hall log walls chinked tight, resolutions fiery, trust, busted rail barons, speeches Grange Journal, quoted mailed senators, speeches fiery bound farmers tight shoulder, closing prayer knelt boards rough knees, bent committing fields lords keep lean years seed. Shared neighbor green shot. Hopeful fall circle turned seasons, sure dues collected tin past row pockets, emptied nickels dimes silver quarters, jingling promise mutual aid doctors bill covered widow fever took man, wood hauled storm cellar stocked beans quart jars ruby glow lantern light supper stretched, long fiddle sawed, polka, lively feet flew skirts, swirled dust rising merry laughter, echoing hills dark velvet stars pricked bright. Summer's windows propped sticks breeze meadowlark song, weave mending porch rocker creaking paw pipe, glowing evenings wind sighing, eve's simple task, turned rich cloth, mended strong threads, pulled tight family bound closer, hearth glow lessons endure frost melted fields green promise, kept faithful shirts, torn mended pants patched dresses hemmed socks, darned enduring, where plow day harvest rush, through shine storm needle, set rhythm, sure, binding generations close snip stitch knot. Time memories warm. Thread tip, dust settled heart recalls rocker creak, scissors snip, needle flash voices low blending, sure long shadows, floors worn smooth path home, true, walked same furrow straight. Lamps cast golden pools across our 1870s farm parlor floors worn smooth by generations of stocking feet, pulling family close after supper plates, cleared oilcloth scrub soda, ash water bucket, dipped, well deep evenings turned to games, when Pa fetched checkerboard walnut inlaid squares red-black, painted careful store, Harlan traded butterprints, clover stamped eggs crates, nested straw scales, clink brass weights, fair nod wrapped brown paper string. Strong bounce wagon ruts wheels, singing gravel. Song afternoon board set kitchen table scarred knife nicks cheese wheels cut wedges wire singing rind shared crackers saltines crisp applejack shots small men leaned elbows talk hog prices Louisville down dressed weight corn futures Chicago wild rust brown half stand July while mother dealt cards fox and geese parchment thin figures carved careful goose triangle chased fox corners trapped sly pa teaching strategy think 3 moves ahead son. Voices low rumble blended crickets, chirp windows. Propped sticks breeze meadowlark hush fields mowed hay scent drifting barn loft stuffed fork deep ladder climbed slow pitchfork loads shaken loose litter fresh calves bald pin waiting share warmed bottles dregs skimmed slop strong coats glossy fall heavy brood stock. Air hung thick kerosene smoke faint wool blankets knees against chill seeping cracks stuffed rag tight drafts chased fire glow faces ruddy shadows danced walls papered newsprint yellowed Lincoln bold Union held pa jumped king's red disc clicked black line crossed triumphant grin flash teeth white pipe cherry bowl glowing tobacco plug sliced fine evenings rocker creek porch wind sighing Eve's brother challenged bold lost 3 straight crowed victory next turn sisters. Watched eyes wide learning. Patterns memorized McGuffey readers worn spines honesty pilgrim fathers recited loud, no stumbling switch whisper knuckles pink forgiven nod lines rang clear penmanship looped graceful steel nibs dipped inkwell black powder mixed weekly monitor swept floors hauled wood pennies saved Christmas candy peppermint sticks jawbreakers swirled colors tongues stained happy licorice whips black pulled long shared cousins schoolyard hoops rolled barrel staves tops. Whipped humming bear oaks teacher strict. Doorstep bell clanged iron tongue-high ciphering multiplication droned 8 times 756 voices blended sure memory work beaten oil lamp pa quizzed evenings round hearth. Rhythm built steady click disc wood on would slap cards table felt worn ace high straight flush mother smiled sly pocketed matchsticks stakes small traded favors extra cornbread pocket milk sip warm tin lean post dew lift pastures clover seeded hang bellies full graze noon coffee black eggs fried buckets lined spring house lingered ears scratched flanks brushed curry combs nails bonds quiet man beast storm shine rain slick pails ringing hard ground cows huddled Eve's drips shakes Bessie calf stall milk streamed pa guided wobbly legs rubbed sacking utter first drink yield cream high butter churned supper richer gift stalls clean forked midden heap garden spread litter mow ladder slow shaking loose calves coats glossy fall brood stock heavy care dawn patience Pull poor nourishment land, herd lessons muscle memory sank deep seasons sure. Pa spun tails mid-game Paul Bunyan blue, oxbabe footprint lakes logger giant axe pine, straight thunder shook rafters uncle horse, trading swapped sorrel. Colt bay gelding hidden flaw lameness creek tested water, deep mud sucked boots, dust rose throats parched lemonade merchant poured nickels dimes clinking tiller jar, full bellies grin fair, shake handshake firm word bond, ironclad, no papers trust roots lone black laughter broke, tints board fox cornered geese, triumph cheers, soft clapping hands bonds knit deeper blood sweat, plow furrow straight, no isolation gatherings pulled holds together oak pegs barn raised. Shoulder crossroads church. Store grange steady binding scattered farms thread talk trust souls fed connection kin swelled fuller. Breaks short Bible thumped black leather gilt edge mantle David sling Goliath helmet brass tumbled dust cheers valley shepherd boy king harp psalms soothing torment songs swelled sweet by voices pure alto tenor bass harmony shape notes schoolhouse practiced convention fall circuits joined river flood sisters bright brother tenor fumbled laughing smooth right one evening blurs clear storm rage shutters banging chimney howled game paused prayer bowed heads lords keep blow shine circle knit fire embers poked coals banked ash smolder dawn shores lantern sway beam yellow fork hay dust motes danced calves bald pin bottles warmed skim milk slop cows heavy fall care dawn patience pull pour simple evenings rich games shared one jump one deal one tale time memories warm board tip dust settled heart recalls click discs slap cards voices low blending sure long shadows floors worn smooth path home true walked same furrow straight winter nights stretched snow drifted doors stove coal red glow huddled catalogs poured plows McCormick reaper debt hope flickered low summers baked dust lemonade poured nickels dimes clinking tiller jar full bellies horse trading swapped sorrel bay hidden flaw creek tested water deep mud boots dust throats grin fair shake through shine storm games set rhythm a sure binding family close click voices low blending hearth glow lessons endure frost melted fields green promise kept faithful kings crowned aces high enduring play plow day harvest rush needle set stitch knot time shirts torn mended pants patch dresses hemmed socks darn butter churn dasher creek yellow gold salt worked grains fine cellar jars wax dipped cloth tops flies kept out spread bread yeast risen soft crust golden steam sweet thanks ground given good generations played same board carved careful walnut inlaid squares red black jumped kings triumphed fox trapped geese one laughter echoed hills dark velvet stars pricked bright simple task turned rich neighborly one move one card one victory time bonds enduring long frost melted promise kept faithful with horses harnessed and sun climbing full gold beyond field edge our 1870s farmstead gathered strength for morning's final push. Pa's boots planted firm by the tool shed, where hinges squeaked old iron, and the door swung wide to reveal racks lined with handles worn silky from seasons of sweat, shovel blades bright from spring diggings, hoe heads oiled against the rust, spade and mattock, scythe sharp as the kitchen knife mother honed on the whetstone after pie making. Brother fetched the wheelbarrow, one wheel wobbling but airtight, ready for stone picking in the lower 40, while I shouldered the rake for spreading straw mulch over new cucumber mounds in the garden patch. Plans for the day unspooled from Pa's mouth in that slow, measured tone that marked him master of both patience and purpose. Fencing mended south lot, beans staked double along ditch, strawberry runners pressed into damp furrow and checked for snails. Sisters sat at the bench, fingers looping twine for tomato cages. After eggs counted, each dozen stacked snug for market run in the buggy after chores. Air hung fresh with mingled scents. Hay drying on paddock hill, moist earth overturned behind the barn, faint beck of kerosene from the lantern left beside the barrel, where water still rippled cool from the well. Hens cackled loud warning as cats darted from under feed sacks, chasing mice through shadow. Piglets grunted at the gate, eager for mash, ears twitching alert to Pa's whistle. We moved through morning's rhythm as one, passing tools hand to hand, baskets and buckets, salt and staves, all familiar, all claimed by the memory of chores repeated daily, work which stitched the farm and built the marrow in our bones, shaped morning's resolve as surely as any Sunday sermon. Grass dew-soaked trouser hems, sunlight blinking off axe heads as brother set his shoulders to split kindling for the kitchen stove replenished. By mid-morning, the sweep of tasks settled into quiet order. Fence wire stretched taut, beans hoed straight, cucumber mounds dressed straw, hens coaxed for another clutch, buggy wheels checked and greased, Pa's hand on every plan. "Be sure the gate hooks hold," he'd say as I clattered the latch against the post, and Mother's call for strawberries mint hands red with juice, filling pails as barn shadows shortened. Breaks came brief, just a gulp from the jug resting cool, water sloshed in a tin cup, wiped on sleeve, sweet sharp on the tongue in that way only spring water knows. Pa checked the clock, its fat brass hands ticking off long chords of mourning as chores ebbed and flowed. Instruction traded for encouragement, younger ones learning from older, memories stacking in layers like straw on the hay wagon. One morning stands out when a wheel snapped on the barrow midway to the pond, stones spilling, laughter rolling through the grass while Pa showed how to bind spokes with wire and leather. "Always save what you can," he'd remind, knotting cord pulled from feed sacks kept after threshing. Through struggles, the rhythm never broke. Hands steady, shadows lengthening, wool patched, beans righted, strawberries piled high in the kitchen for mid-morning pie. And just beyond the rise, smoke rising from lunch fire promised hours yet untold. Tools wiped clean, hung back on hooks, plans marked in Pa's head for tomorrow's round. No part wasted. Every chore plucked from the earth's promise and returned with gratitude. Each hand strengthened, every plan carried forward. By noon, chores completed, our world stretched sound as horses in harness, sturdy along fence lines, paws on straw, memories tight as cotter pins. Morning tasks faded into stories retold under the shade of the shed, voices low, laughter edged by the hope of the next sunny day. Tools ready, plans drawn, the farm stitched together, hope enduring and work remembered in the dust and shine of dawn's honest labor. By the time sun stretched high and chores hummed to quiet, the family lined up muddy boots and bare feet at the porch. Breakfast call ringing through our 1870s farmhouse as Mother clanged the skillet, window open to lilac breeze, voice summoning us with that unmistakable warmth only a clean kitchen and coffee boil could promise. The aroma circled from stove to parlor, biscuits rising golden, gravy thickened from yesterday's pork drippings, fried eggs tableside, milk chilled deep in the well bucket, strawberry jam sweet as last spring's hope, and a pan of apples fried with sugar and cinnamon. Each plate held more than food. A promise of work returned, a chance to sit close on benches while Pa gathered his thoughts over worn prayer book open, hands and faces scrubbed, and cheeks bright from the labor of mourning. We'd file round the table, Pa at its head, eyes lingering on each face, counting the completion of chores as much as the number of biscuits. Mother poured mugs, sisters set preserves, brother boasted first about harnessing the bays, and the youngest chattered about the hen's clutch counted fresh. Laughter rumbled, low and steady, as stories settled among the clink of spoons against crockery and the rasp of knife through bread. In that haze of steam and butter, Pa would review the morning's work, voice slow as church bells. "The fence stands tight," he might start, beans hoed straight. Cream collected clean, pigs fed, kindling split, and stalls swept. A nod for every task done sure, a murmur of pride, gentle correction for what missed. Check that far gate again after we eat, and mind the north pasture clover later. Breakfast lingered long by lantern light, each member swapping tales. How boots stuck in mud at first light, how the well bucket near slipped and brother's quick hand saved the day, how strawberries this year ran bigger than last, how the horses set their shoulders perfect, plow lines straight as a promise. Quiet moments came, the simmering hush of gratitude, a prayer for sun to hold for haying, the memory of neighbors who once gathered here, their laughter carried away and yet always lingering in the shadows and shine of morning. Hunger softened by hard work, plates emptied, a second cup poured while Pa mapped the rest of the day and practiced phrases, tasks divided for forenoon and afternoon, plans stitched tight as the seams of Mother's new apron. Children darted inside and out, fetching flour or feeding scraps to waiting dogs, while upstairs window showed the sway of the wind and the slow flight of sparrows circling the barn roof. Sisters snuck extra jam, Pa caught every tiptoe with the ease of experience and the kindness of a man worn smooth by years of morning effort. Breakfast served more than nourishment. It forged connection, knotted together the morning's scattered efforts, tuned everyone's minds to the rhythms of chores yet to come, echoed in the shared laughter, the stories swapped and remembered. Once the food was gone and plans made, boots thudded porch, doors swung wide, and the farm pulsed anew. Garden weeded, tools fetched, market buggy loaded, songs hummed soft for comfort and hope. Morning's last act was always this: the gathering for breakfast, the pausing to take stock, the marking of what was done and what would be built by the end of daylight. Simple, familiar, binding morning's hope with day's promise. The farm's table held the story of labor and care, preserving both dust and shine from dawn's first honest hours as the sun climbed higher, ready to witness all that family would work and win before the dusk returned. It begins with the earliest hush of pre-dawn, a cold current of November drifting through thick-walled rooms where the quilted comfort of night clings tight, until rooster calls and the steady scuff of boots against pine-board floors announce yet another day unspooling its ordinary promise the way it has always done, hour by hour, step by careful step. In that muted blue darkness, before the sun dances across the knotted grain of the kitchen table, life stirs, the measured breath of children curled together, the soft sigh of mother rising to kindle the hearth, hands calloused and sure searching for kindling cut yesterday, when the sky blushed pink beneath a thinning blanket of autumn cloud. Pa sits a moment in hard-won quiet, socks warming near the glow, working the knots from tired fingers before planning another circuit of repair and nurture that weaves each sunrise into the living fabric of family, field, and home. A muted chorus builds as beds empty and shuffles and snores. Breakfast sounds quickening with clatters. Coffee percolating brisk on the iron stove, oats measured into tin bowls, the scent of lard mingling with soap rough-cut from last winter's pork, mother's footsteps measured, her mind already counting day's tasks beneath the steady rhythm of the spoon. Through oil-glazed panes, the yard waits shadowed and expectant, chickens perched restless in the coop dreaming of scattered grain, pigs rooting against the gate, cows lined for the milking that shapes all else around its timing. The water bucket swings from the well, cold and pure as memory, ready to fill pans for washing and crock for dough, even as steam climbs round the windows edging frost. Pa's voice, gentle but insistent, carries through the door and across porch boards, leaving a tidy wake of obedience and anticipation. Jackets pulled tight, boots laced, baskets hoisted, each gesture tethered to years of repetition. Outside, the day unfolds in an endless dance of chores, tools swapped between large hands and small, directions passed in the shorthand of those who know the land as they know their own breath. Chickens call hungry, eager for the sweep of corn across packed earth. Eggs are counted into baskets with straw lining, each shell another fragile possibility, destined for sale or consumption. The sow stands heavy at her gate, grunt deep and patient, waiting for yesterday's mash, while calves bawl from the pen for warm slops ladled from tin buckets steaming still. Milking runs quick and steady, streams hissing into the pail, foam cresting sweet, hands chilled but deft in rhythm learned beside Pa years ago under wiser eyes. The horses, bays and geldings, sway in their stalls, half listening for the creak of the harness room door, for the leather collars oiled last night and hung neat as promises against the wall. Harnessing teaches care, each buckle checked, each strap settled, a moment of gentleness that precedes the full strength of the day. Out to the plow for furrow work if frost allows, rocks picked from the far field and rolled in barrows, straw mulched in garden rows to keep roots warm, buggy wheels greased, and checked for the trip to town that is both necessity and escape. Brothers test the hitch of the main gate, tightening loops against stray cattle, their laughter rolling across the chilly air, echoing from barn to kitchen window where sisters watch and sigh. Fingers tired from twining twine for tomato cages or kneading the dough that will be tonight's bread. Tools, shovels, hoes, mattocks, pass through hands with the reverence reserved for family stories. Each has a history, a notch counting years or a handle replaced when the old one split from summer's heat. every bit as much a part of the day's labor as the prayers whispered over warm plates and cool morning air. The field is a patchwork of promise and struggle, marked by furrows and footprints, by the neat squares where beans stand staked and lines where strawberry runners are pressed deep and checked for snails. Outbuildings call for repairs, roof shingles loose from wind, railings split from the weight of time, hinges in need of grease or sometimes full replacement, always intended to last at least another season. By mid-morning, routines stretch into their practiced order as breakfast looms, a gathering of achievement and hope. The last 2 hours have been spent in bounding hens, counting eggs, feeding pigs, hauling water, splitting wood, harnessing horses, milking cows, and mulching garden, and now there is quiet purpose in the approach back to the house. Mother's kitchen bustles with the tidy racket of bread set to rise, gravy thickening in its pan, apples and cinnamon melding sweetly for a later treat. Children bring news. How many eggs, how much cream, stories about the hen that got away, the piglet who tried to squeeze through the fence. Pa gathers each report as he might gather tools after the day's work, weighing, nodding, offering soft praise, or assigning a second look, a future correction. Check the gate again, mind the clover in the north pasture, fetch another armload of kindling before the rain. Breakfast becomes both reward and ritual, the table a map and record of mornings. Efforts, divided between mugs and bread, conversation and the next set of plans. Farm work never stands still. After breakfast, they scatter again, sun rising higher, warmer, clearer. Brother harnesses the horses for plowing, feeling the drag of the moldboard and the slow, insistent rhythm of steady animals on earth that gives enough to promise harvest if the rains hold. Sister hoists the kindling to the washhouse where mother scrubs shirts on the board and hangs them on lines in the fresh wind, thumbing seams and checking for worn elbows or unraveled cuffs that need mending at lamplight. Children chase after chores, splitting further into tasks, cleaning stalls, spreading manure, retrieving water in pails heavy as any hope carried from the well. Time ticks in chores, a wheelbarrow snaps, a gate needs yet another hinge, a peach branch breaks near the garden. So the day is forever adapting, improvising with each small surprise. The kitchen, meanwhile, glows, a steady hub of gathering, repair, and sustenance. Bread rises, stew simmers, coffee perks. Mother and sister sweep, set dough, check the apples, set aside the first eggs. The youngest is tasked with small jobs, tying knots in twine, fetching the soap, helping mother pin patchwork squares along the edge of her apron. An old cat follows them from room to room, content with the prospect of warm milk and occasional scraps. Neighbors pull up in buggies when the sun crests noon, faces weather-cracked, boots muddy, voices soft as dust. News and gossip pass easily with the handover of seed potatoes or the butter churned yesterday. The rhythm of the day is communal, work divided, shared, passed in the easy contraction and expansion of need. A fence mended here, a child helped there, repairs planned and postponed. By early afternoon, the farm pulses in harmony. Cows fed and milked, pigs happy at trough, chickens settled, garden weeded, buggy checked, harnesses wiped, tools hung neat, laundry billowing on the line, bread cooling on the rack. Pa checks the tool shed and notes what's lacking, marking the absence for the next trip to town. The kitchen is a haven, bread scents thickening the air, biscuits golden, preserves bubbling, the kettle rattling softly. Mother teaches each step in song and story, knitting, mending, reciting tales of her own girlhood when the farm was both smaller and harder, her hands drifting across generations of fabric to patch and repair, her voice steady and soft. They gather again near the porch for midday dinner, stories traded over bread thick with jam, fried apples, coffee poured rich. This is the time for reflection, for checking progress, for teasing, for laughter, and the laying out of new tasks. Pa maps out the rest of the afternoon in clipped phrases: beans to hoe, strawberries to check, potatoes to hill, harnesses to wash, hay to pitch, garden to mulch, buggy to prepare, eggs to carry, fence posts to reset. The chatter is content, tired, hopeful, punctuated by the steady hum of afternoon work. Later, when the day drifts towards dusk, chores draw to a gentle close. The last eggs are fetched, stalls are cleaned again. Another pail of water pulled from the spring, the kindling split anew and stored dry for the next morning's fire. Children chase each other round the barn, laughter rolling and echoing, while Pa sets the last tool on its peg and Mother calls everyone in for supper. Airs hum thick with scents of cooking, pork gravy, fresh bread, boiled potatoes, peaches stewing for later. The family convenes at the kitchen table, hands and faces washed, boots lined along the door, stories of days' labor traded for a hot meal, and the warmth of connection that only shared work and shared food can bring. After supper plates have been cleaned and set aside, evening settles. Boots come off, chairs scrape to the parlor, fire built up for the night. Mother mends socks, her needles shining thin gold beneath the lamplight, while Pa whittles a new handle for the breaking rake. Children finish lessons at the table or play quiet games upon the checkered cloth, the click of wood and the soft shuffle of cards making music as old as the land itself. The hours slip away in this easy comfort. Hymn books sometimes fetched for singing, stories spun in low voices, tales of the old days, legends of the land, hopes and plans for tomorrow. By the time the last light dims and the lamp is trimmed, the family draws itself into quiet circles, stories done, work completed, hearts full and bodies tired. Prayers are said, blessings counted. The children slide toward beds made ready with patchwork and care, and the farm breathes into night, gathered close in the knowledge that dawn will bring more of the steady rhythm. Work and rest, hope and habit, dust and shine, all stitched together by the memory and promise that life here, on this farm, is enough. First light creeps under the door with that soft but certain promise of a new day, slow to shake the last cool grip of November as it sweeps through rooms that still remember the hush of midnight voices. In the old farmhouse shadowed by towering elms and the tattered pennants of last summer's corn, the day rises with the weary but hopeful shuffles of boots and stockinged feet. Pa is first to move, surveying the world outside beyond frosted glass, fingertips nipping at the warmth of the kitchen stove where coffee simmers black and steady, his mind already circling plans like a trained team rounding the home lot. The room is still, Mother moving in her patient way, the familiar rattle of wood and iron, the measured pouring of water into the basin, the careful gathering of breakfast pans. Steam rises, mingled with the perfume of hot lard and the sour tang of homemade soap. Rituals that are as regular as breath, as unassuming as the day's first words. Behind the kitchen, beyond the roofed porch, the yard starts to stir. Barn doors opened wide. The rough haul of straw and the scatter of corn, chickens stretching their necks towards the sun, pigs rooting in the new daylight, cows clustered near the gate in expectation, their breath forming quick silver clouds on the morning breeze. Sisters trundle out with baskets, shawls thrown about shoulders, skirts snagging on split rails, ready to collect eggs in the straw and fill troughs with grain. Brothers follow with arms and boots prepared for heavier labor, drawing water from the well, splitting kindling, listing the tasks that will braid their day into the neat lines of tried routine and necessary invention. Pa stands in the barn, harnesses leathered and shining, testing each buckle before looping collars across the neck of beasts who know him as kin and leader. Horses stamp and nicker, waiting for the slow delivery of oats, the brushing of their thick autumn coats, the measuring of each hoof for new shoes hammered and sung into place by the blacksmith last week. With breakfast called, tables pulled close to the stove, the kitchen becomes a theater of hoped for comfort. Smell of coffee, bread brown hot and split by hungry hands, steer bacon and fried apples passed from skillet to plate. The youngest, sleepy, laughs at the tales of last night's storms and wild morning dreams. Pa lists out the day's work, fences to mend, potatoes to dig and bank, letters to be signed for the merchant hauling flour from town, chickens to be separated, butter to be churned before the sun is high. Sisters trade gossip about the neighbor's new baby and the preacher's fall from his buggy into the ditch, a story that already feels like a part of family folklore. After breakfast, the work fractures into its reliable mosaic. Boys harness teams, fingers stiff but sure on knots, voices echoing through the stalls. Pa leads, calling instructions, walking the perimeter of the farm, every decision building upon seasons of habit and immediate necessity. Here a gate that sags, there a fence that needs bracing, a new mark upon the ledger to record the loss of a fattened calf to sickness, the gain of an extra dozen eggs to tomorrow's market table. The garden, despite the season's chill, asks for more. Mulch is added to beds, compost worked under fading marigold stalks, plans made for next year's rows. Spark of the axe sounds through the yard, split wood tumbling into heaps for the evening fire. Each chore handed from older to younger, always with correction, patience, and pride. Mother's kitchen, after the clutter of breakfast is swept away, settles into its second job, making food last. Bread is baked and cooled, stored away in crocks. Butter churned, its golden color a reward for aching arms. Apples pared and set aside in large bowls for pies that will fill the house with sweetness against the gathering cold. Laundry is scrubbed on the washboard, shirts and socks hung with pins along a rope behind the house, while little ones dart underfoot, snatching at unhung linens or scattering the hens with shrill play. The clock ticks quietly, keeping its own rhythm against the candid busyness of hands and feet. By late morning, Pa and the boys head to the field, their work a careful ballet of muscle and intention. Plowing the lower 40, the horses steady but spirited, the share slicing earth that will sleep through winter and rise fed by the compost they have made with each cleaning of stalls and spreading of manure. Fence repair is the work of every man. Posts driven, wires stretched, staples hammered with the economy of effort that comes from 100 repeated days. The youngest is given a bucket and the job of picking rocks from each furrow, his determination celebrated with each grunted lift and every small stone hurled aside. On the way back, they pause for the easy laughter of family. A joke remembered, a memory spun anew. It's the pattern of year after year. Harvest gone, now preparing the land for rest. The afternoon returns the rhythm to different tasks. In the kitchen, mother and sisters pickle late beans and beets, their faces calm and content over the rhythmic slice and pack, the boil of brine, the gentle setting of lids. The youngest returns from the yard, carrying news of a squirrel chased by the dog, a hen that refuses the nest, a new nest of eggs hidden under the feed bin. Pa, having finished his rounds, sits at his desk, scratching at letters meant for relatives in far-off towns. Births and deaths, good yields and bad, an invitation to Christmas, a tale about the first snow flurry of November. Neighbors arrive near sunset, their buggy clattering loose over frozen ruts, a bundle of seed potatoes traded for a few pints of fresh cream. Talk spreading easily as molasses over the news of fence lines, market prices, and the slow repairs of a hard-worn plow. Pa hands off a repaired chain, receives word about some trouble in the north field. Always, the network of rural life tightens its threads, reinforcing bonds between homes separated by miles, and yet joined by the regular exchange of labor, kindness, and story. As dusk folds neatly over the day, supper is called in voices that ring clear and unwavering. Boots muddy are left at the door, hands washed with cold water from the pump, faces scrubbed pink and hearts hungry for the comfort of food, warmth, and family voices. At the table, stew bubbling thick, bread torn hungrily, pie sliced generous, each bite a seal upon the day's small triumphs and enduring effort. Dinner is not merely sustenance, but celebration, a recognition of collective labor and individual accomplishment, a promise that tomorrow will repeat this same hopeful pattern. Evening brings the slow winding down. Chores are checked and rechecked, young ones sent to gather eggs for the morning, horses watered and stabled with fresh hay. The family gathers in the parlor, the lamp trimmed and the fire coaxed with split logs. Children cluster around the checkerboard, gentle arguments breaking into laughter and clever strategy. Mother repairs shirts with her careful needle, Pa whittles a new handle for a garden tool, oldest brother reads over the almanac, measuring weather for tomorrow's plans. There are stories, spun from Grandpa's memories or from news picked up at the store, tales of panthers in the moonlit woods, of runaway wagons, and of old weddings honored by faded ribbons in someone's Sunday best drawer. On winter nights, hymn books are fetched, voices raised in shape-note harmony, the room holding echoes of ancient songs, reassuring as the soft hum of wind through crackling branches. If the lamp flickers or the wind rattles the pane, Prayer is offered before bed, a gratitude for safe shelter and steady hands. In the lull that follows, beds are made with fresh straw and patched blankets, last chores performed by the light of one last lantern. Prayers are exchanged in soft whispers, the youngest tucked in beneath the warmth of flannel and love. The farm settles, rooms quiet, dark but never lonesome, each member dreaming through the night of another day's worth of effort, pride, and memory. This cycle of life, punctuated by work, bound by family, strengthened by community and tradition, writes its story beneath a sky bright with stars, knowing that day and night, season and struggle, every voice and every step is cherished and needed. The rope stretched between barn posts, the bread shared at breakfast, the fence mended between neighbors, and the laughter spilled over card games become more than routine. They are the treasured measure of heart, heritage, and hope. The day begins deep and slow, tangled in the soft haze of dawn that washes every window with a pale milk light, draping each shadow in the quiet expectancy of another November morning. The blankets feel heavier this time of year, and the air tastes sharper, every breath crisp, every footfall a gentle promise on cold pine boards. The old farmhouse stirs even before the rooster cracks open the night, Pa moving steady with the measured patience of a man whose life is cast in the mold of routine, rolling socks near the kitchen fire and listening for the wind beneath the eaves. No one else is up, but he is never truly alone. The memory of yesterday's tasks and tomorrow's hope are his silent companions as he gathers kindling and fills the water pot, hands skilled by decades spent serving hearth and field alike. Mother follows gently, the familiar warmth of her presence filling corners and waking shadows. Her hands already know the day's work that will tumble across every surface and shelf, deft fingers measuring out coffee and oats, setting pans atop the great black stove, feet padding from pantry to bucket, stirring quiet magic into the first meal. Children turn on their pillows, eyes fluttering open to the sound of spoons and the subtle hum of breakfast being built from scratch. The aroma of lard and bread laces itself through the air, a call that is both comfort and command. No one protests. This is the way of things, a choreography rehearsed until every gesture feels inevitable. Even the dog understands, stretching out on a rag rug and blinking in the growing gold. The house wakes in layers. Sisters wrap shawls and tug boots over stockings, hands clutching baskets for eggs and grain. Brothers buckle belts and chase after kindling, the younger ones trailing behind with questions and clever plans, always eager to help and never quite sure of the boundaries. Out in the yard, the world thickens with life. Chickens chitter and cluck, their feathers puffed against the chill, while pigs root stubbornly at the gate and the cows collect themselves in clusters near the trough, heads lowered, breath steaming in patient clouds. Pa opens the barn wide. Horses stamp and nicker, each ready for the day's burdens with a grace born of trust and ritual. Mother signals breakfast, the kitchen table now brushed with the full weight of family. Coffee poured from a battered tin, apples fried with sugar in the skillet, biscuits baked golden and split for jam. There is scarce conversation at first, just the pulling and passing of plates, but as the bellies warm and the bread disappears, voices grow sure and laughter winds through the old beams. Pa announces the day's program: fences to mend, potatoes to bank, harness to oil, barn repairs to plan, butter to churn, and by measure or memory, each hand is spoken for. After breakfast, every soul fans out across the farm. Boys harness teams, shoulders hunched against the wind, hands finding strength in repetition. The horses know their lines, waiting for gentle words and rough leather. Each buckle checked twice before the plow is hitched and the soft earth gives way to the iron. Out by the chicken coop, sisters scatter corn and count eggs, careful fingers probing straw and teaching the youngest how to avoid sharp beaks and jealous hens. Mother draws water from the well, her palms smoothing the familiar handle, lifting the day's first weight in a way that turns every chore into a prayer for health and harvest. By mid-morning, the rhythm is plain to see. Pitchforks lifting fresh straw, pails sloshing full, barn doors swinging, and boots packing mud across the yard. The field is alive with effort. Rocks are picked, stumps skirted, wires stretched along fence lines and tested for give. Every task, no matter how small, is shaped by the knowledge gained from years and the mistakes made yesterday. Pa watches carefully, offering correction with a gentle hand and an eye for what needs doing next. Children dart between chores, the youngest trailing after with a bucket or stick, carrying laughter wherever they go. Mother turns the kitchen into a hub of industry. Bread rises in the warmth beside the stove, pies cool on the sill, and butter is churned in steady measure. Wash hangs on the line, shirts and trousers flapping like flags against the cold sun, socks and sheets pinned with clever hands while stories and songs pour from lips distracted by work but open to memory. The laundry water is saved for scrubbing floors. The scraps each find a place in pig buckets or stew pots. Everything has its use. Nothing is wasted. Afternoons slide by in a gentle press of tasks. Pa digs in the garden, spreading compost beneath fading marigolds and marking the rows where next spring's beans will climb. Sisters repair the chicken wire, careful not to startle the birds. Brothers carry out repairs, replacing hinges, oiling tools, patching the window in the hayloft where last week's wind tore it ragged. Horses are groomed, tails and manes brushed to gleaming, shoes checked, and hooves cleaned. Even the dog finds work, keeping watch over stray cats and trailing after whoever is lucky enough to be digging near the soft, loamy bank of the creek. Neighbors arrive before supper, buggy wheels crunching across gravel and faces wrapped tight in scarves against the gathering cold. Trade fills the afternoon, potatoes for apples, seed for newspaper, a pan of butter swapped for a chain mended in last week's storm. Conversation swells, pressing news and advice, laughter, and a few careful confessions about the health of livestock or the price of market eggs. Pa listens more than he speaks. Mother's voice is a quicksilver comfort, teasing out recipes and little kindnesses from the corners and shadows. As dusk comes, the kitchen glows with supper, pork quick-fried, grits set to steam, gravy ladled thick, bread split and buttered, apples stewed gently for dessert. The table becomes an anchor for the family, a place to recount the day, to heal the small hurts and forgive slip-ups, to share pride and plans and the hope for tomorrow. Candles are lit, prayers murmured in the hush that follows. Even the youngest settle, drawn in by the comfort and security of this nightly ritual. After supper, chores return in softer circles. Horses watered and blanketed, hens checked and coops scattered with fresh straw, pigs given one last scoop, gates latched tight. Mother mends. Pa whittles small toys for the little ones or shapes a handle for a broken hoe. Children finish lessons or play checkers with a focus that suggests either rivalry or affection. It is hard to tell which sometimes. The parlor becomes the stage for song and story. Hymn books fetched, voices blending in harmony. Sometimes laughter spilling between verses, sometimes quiet descending like snow. Tales are told of ghosts on moonlit roads, ancient panthers in the creek bottom, runaway wagons, and the preacher's buggy mishaps. There are stories of loss and gain, of hopes and old loves, stories about the land itself and the gifts it wrapped in fog or frost. Beds are made up, hands washed, faces cleaned and kissed, prayers whispered as the night folds softly around the family. The house settles, creaking and honest, the porch light left burning for passing neighbors or stray dogs. The legacy of the day drifts in the little hours, work done, laughter sung, mistakes softened by kindness and care. Each sunrise will unfurl this silent pageant again, through frost and wind and spring rains, through mud and taming sun, with every new calf or mended fence or loaf of bread set warm on the table. In this rhythm there is no end, only the quiet weaving of days to years, of hunger to satisfaction, of effort to rest, stitched together beneath a sky both faithful and infinite, a testament to what family and hope can build when tradition is met with love, when memory is offered in the simple comfort of bread, and when the promise of another morning is enough.